probably this is your final session, maybe. We may be between you and going home, but thank you for being here this morning. I'm Holly DeArmond. I am the Executive Director of the Global Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centers, the GCEC, not to be confused with GEC, but I've been planning this session for 4 months and I keep getting tongue-tied. But at the GCEC, we really focus on higher education. So it's very similar to this, and we bring people together in convenings. We have digital content. We have a very broad and collaborative network, but we're focused on higher education entrepreneurship. So our members are faculty, staff, administrators doing the work of startup formation, of innovation on campuses worldwide. We are a global organization, and we're here this week because we aspire to be more global, and I've enjoyed meeting so many of you. So I'm not gonna talk very long. I do wanna always set the stage for what's gonna happen while you're here today. We have a long session, but it's gonna be interactive. So we have a really exciting keynote that's gonna inspire you. You're gonna feel excited about AI. You're gonna feel excited about entrepreneurship when we are done with that keynote. And then we have a series of panels that we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about teaching inside and outside the classroom with an AI focus. And then we're gonna talk about the regulatory landscape as well. Sandwiched in the middle of all of that, we have an AI tool that one of our GCEC members from London is going to demo for you. So it's all about entrepreneurship, it's all about education, and it's all about AI. And we can't escape that. Most of you have probably been here all week. We've had several sessions on AI. Everyone's talking about it. There's excitement about it. There's concern about it. And we're going to talk about all of that today. So I'm your master of ceremonies, so I'm going to be the one kind of coming on and off stage and making sure that everything stays on time so that we can get out of here at noon for lunch. So I'm now going to introduce Ted Zoller from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So Ted has been a longtime member of the GCEC. He's an award-winning teacher and researcher. He's helped develop entrepreneurs and founders inside the classroom, outside the classroom. He's done research on investor networks and ecosystems. He's an expert. In fact, on Tuesday, Ted led a really in-depth research session, and I think Jen and Ted have some really interesting plans for entrepreneurship research for this organization. And I can't leave the stage without saying, in 2019, Ted was the winner of the GCEC Legacy Award, which we presented to him in Stockholm, Sweden, for his commitment to our organization and his commitment to the field. So Ted, I'm going to bring you up now. Thanks.
So Holly's just the best. Don't you love her? What we're doing with GCEC is just extraordinary. And I'm so thrilled to have this program here. How do you introduce Steve Spinelli? I mean, he's the GOAT, no kidding, the GOAT of entrepreneurship. He started as a lowly entrepreneur, working his way up to be the founder of an industry. He's the founder of Jiffy Lube, if you don't know. But he also established the entire class of quick oil change and it changed. Thank you for the value proposition of not having to spend lots of time sitting around a dealership. So I appreciate that, Steve, for that. Spent a 14-year career working his way up as a professor at Babson College, making extraordinary contributions to the intellectual life and bringing entrepreneurship into the mainstream of academia. Developing programs, and then as the head of the Arthur Blank Center at Babson, developing some of the programs that we all have gone through, have all been trained through, have built an industry of academics as well as serving our relative students. So think about the impact of these programs and what they have done for thousands and thousands and thousands of the vital 1% of people who take the chance of being an entrepreneur. So I just want to thank Steve for his commitment. That's what drives him every day. So he left a lucrative job as being a founder to becoming an academic. It was interesting. He has his PhD from Imperial College, and he received an honorary doctorate in Northern Ireland from Ulster. And his assistant tried to get me to say introduce him as Dr. Spinelli, but I know him well enough to know that he would actually prefer just to be called Steve. The other thing Steve has done, and I just want to pick on him a little bit, he's been able to somehow sustain the #1 ranking at Babson year over year for decades. And it's done two things. It's accomplished two things. It's positioned Babson as the preeminent school for training, learning, and scholarly work around entrepreneurship. And it stands on its own. It's an extraordinary institution. But it's done another thing as well. It's pissed us all off. For those of us who think we might have the #1 program, we'll never be recognized. But that's okay. Let's go Babson. Let's say Babson. I just want to thank Steve for taking the time to come here. This is a changing time. AI will literally change the face of what we do in entrepreneurship, and it is our moment to actually lean into it. It will accelerate learning in a way that will unlock real potential. I think the half-life of entrepreneurship is going to be that much more short, and we'll have accelerated learning as a result. And Steve is one of the people who is an icon in our field and will kick us off today. So thank you, Steve Spinelli.
What a great guy. You're my, I asked her to do that. I'm not leaving a lot to chance here. You have a student when you're teaching. I used to have a student in the front that I'd say, okay, that's the positive student. When things are going bad, look at her, and she'll get you fired up to keep teaching. Thank you. It's great to be a part of this. Babson is the business equivalent of a music conservatory, if you think about it that way. So if you don't know Babson, we have about 3,000 undergraduates and about 1,200 graduate students. The graduate students are in a series of management master's degrees, and our new doctoral degree, it's just starting in September. And we have about 3,000 undergraduates who major in business. There's a concentration in a lot of different fields. About 12% of our students have a concentration in entrepreneurship. Our largest concentration is in finance. Interestingly, when you look 10 years out, as many of the finance majors go into entrepreneurship as the entrepreneurship majors go into entrepreneurship. So it is a field that really is welcoming. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I want you to get to your panel and get to the real information you're looking for. And I hope to ask them some questions maybe too. It is this is the mission statement of Babson. So we are focused on entrepreneurship. I will tell you the hardest part, I boil it down to 5 words because I'm a retailer and I have to keep it in my head. I can't remember it, all the words that we use. Entrepreneurial leaders impacting communities everywhere. The hardest part of this is everywhere. And the biggest opportunity is everywhere. We can't get captured in the old models of brick and mortar, although they're an important component of it. We can, and this group can, create an ecosystem of entrepreneurship education that could rival anything in the history of the world. We were founded by a guy, here's his claim to fame. He used metrics to measure movements in the marketplace. He was a financial advisor, and in roughly 1917 or 18, he said, or some thereabouts, he said the market's going to crash. He used Newton's law of gravity to do this prediction. The algorithm has proven to be absolutely not accurate, except that time. Listen, as part of the deal, I have in my life, when I pictured that I made this decision and this, whoa, that was done. Thank God that worked out. Luck is a part of this deal and understanding it, but I also think there's an AI interface with luck. Or can you make a decision that is good enough to get you to the next level and not get captured in trying to be perfect? That is, I think, really the enemy of good and the enemy of advance. He did, however, he based his, I love this story, he based it on Newton's law of physics, and he got, I forgot what you call it, a piece of a tree, and then you replant it from the apple tree that fell on Newton's head. We have an orchard at Babson of those original Newton's apples. So if you come to campus, we will give you an apple, and it is, the theory, legend, folklore is that your IQ will go up 1 point if you eat. I've eaten 200 apples in it. I'm telling you, it's folklore. The field of entrepreneurship, I went to Babson. I got my MBA at Babson, so I have a long history at Babson. I went to Babson to get my MBA because it was the only school in 90 miles that taught it. So think about the ascension of the field, the creation, really. What you've done is to create a field, not just teach a subject. And I think the way in which the field has ascended, I'm telling you that, I like saying it this way. Again, remember, I'm a retailer. We're number 2 because of you. Catchy, you know. The reality is, if this doesn't become a part of the ecosystem of learning, then we're not going to get recognized as being some weird offbeat school. And we were considered this sort of strange kind of place for a long time. We were number 1 in entrepreneurship at the early years because no one else taught it. That wasn't that hard to be number 1. Now there are thousands of schools that are teaching it and majoring. It's across all fields. And it is the burgeoning nature of the knowledge that entrepreneurship gives you, the decision-making capabilities. And remember that in the AI world, the decision-making capabilities in a highly volatile world is an entrepreneurial mindset. We don't get this influence unless the world begins to recognize that, and if you don't start teaching it, God bless you. And the ascension is really interesting for me. For most of history, entrepreneurs were born and not made. Or that was the thought. There was an entrepreneur fairy that came across when you were born and said, okay, yes, no, 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 yes, no, 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 yes. And we learned that that's just not true. But you had to be special for a long time. And special meant a little weird. So if you were didn't think the way everybody else thought, maybe we could teach you were special, we could teach you entrepreneurship. Then it can be taught, but in varying degrees. You see how it is. It's a small business, more about startup. It wasn't about the high potential venture or economic growth. It was really small business. Small business administration grew up out of that mentality, in my opinion. And then there was a change. And I don't know if it's driven by a more global environment, a more sophisticated set of teachers and entrepreneurs, and the intersection of the practice and the thought and the action in entrepreneurship was more keen than any other field. The only other field that I think comes close is medicine. Doctors do tons of practice. You have to do clinical. And that was how these really brilliant people could really have an impact. That became the teaching model in entrepreneurship, and I think it revolutionized education because of that. I think it then said, what we believe at Babson is that it is a form of leadership. If you understand that there was a rapidly changing environment, and that rapidly changing environment will affect your citizens, your community, your employees, what do you do about that? Now that takes it out of the realm, or doesn't take it out of the realm of new venture creation. It uses new venture creation as a model for solving lots of dynamic problems. And that, I think, really propels us into where we are today, where there is artificial intelligence will make this a ubiquitous phenomenon. How do we use this in this now complex system of learning and teaching? How do we use AI? I think there is a route. I've got to tell you, if someone comes up here and says, this is the way to do it, go leave. Go have a beer. Because it's, who knows? If you don't engage, though, we're going to be in trouble. You will. That's why I wanted to be here today. I want to encourage you to go try and fail. And have your president, if you're in colleges, have the president call me, and I'll say, listen, I encourage them to lose your money. So don't yell at them, yell at me. We need to really dive in. Here's the way we look at it. See if I went too, no. Here's the way we look at it at Babson. We see that there are 3 aspects to what we have to do, and you'll notice that faculty and research. So faculty as teachers, faculties that are interfaced with the marketplace, faculty as research, faculty play a key role in there, but a 3-dimensional faculty, a really robust set of scholars and practitioners and teachers, that, I think, building that out as each of these as a 3-dimensional phenomenon in your schools. Now, the Arthur M. Blank School for Entrepreneurial Leadership is a relatively unique phenomenon. I would say that most colleges have some form of it. We have taken it to a fanatical level because the president is crazy and has decided that we're going to be fanatical about it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we do that. super important, I think, to look at for what we're doing. I don't know if it's important. I don't even know if it's right. But what we're trying to do is say, how do you infuse artificial intelligence in each of those segments? Then how do you bring them together? Then how do you interact with a series of partnerships in a larger ecosystem? If we can do all 4 or 5 of those functions, then I think we have a robust ability to get everywhere. Now, what we've done in the outreach section is, I think, super important. What we've said in each field of keen interest as expressed by our students and alums, each field of keen interest as expressed by our students and alums. So we are really driving this through market demand. Where is market demand saying that we have to have an interaction with the marketplace, and where can we serve that best? So we put that into a school. Now, it doesn't hurt that Arthur Blank, the founder of Home Depot, is a Babson graduate, and said, oh, I think that's a good idea, and gave us a whole ton of money to do that. But it is, I will tell you, for those of you who are in the fundraising business, having a strategy that people could connect with and say is going to have impact drives investment. They're not looking for a financial return, but they're looking for a return. And if you think the return is to make you feel good or make the president feel good, you're wrong. That is not how they will measure success. If you can give them an articulate understanding of how the marketplace will be changed because of what you're doing, you have a much better chance of getting funded for that. Then we went to each individual, and you'll see that most of these are named for someone. That name is another level of investment. So there is an investment thesis behind here, but it is super important to the teaching model at Babson. And I would ask you to think about this in your own institutions, but frankly, in a partnership environment, if there's anything we're doing in any one of those centers and institutes, and there are about 70 or 75 programs we do, and that's interesting to you, we have the capability, we, higher education and society, has the ability to partner on that. Don't rebuild it. Partner with us. We'll figure out a way to make sure that everybody benefits from it. Let's grow, and let's grow together. That's why the partnership overlay is so important to building this into the next level of success. Now, very important to this is the technology interface. Writ large in entrepreneurship, but very specifically with AI. Can we have a concentrated effort where there is a clear intersection of AI? You are responsible for making sure AI is in every one of those institutes. Again, I think of AI and I think of the behavior of any component of an organization as 3-dimensional. So in your mission to do outreach, in your mission to gather data and understand, in your mission to teach, well, how do you use AI within each center and therefore connect with each division in the college that is doing teaching and make the thought and action paradigm real for students? And then how do you connect each other? So I want to really understand what I'm doing in my center or institute. Let's see if I have, well, I'll show you some examples of what we do. Here's a project a young woman did. She's a student from a family business that does retailing. She comes to Babson, becomes a major in entrepreneurship, goes to the centers and institutes, does a really interesting project on, I'll go back one if I can. This could be a challenge. She goes, go back 2, there we go. She goes to the Frank and Eileen Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership, Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership, and she says, you know, I'm the 3rd generation, the first woman that will be running this company. She's 22 years old. She said, we're looking at doing franchise. So she goes to Frank and Eileen. Then she says, it's a family business. So she goes to Bertarelli Institute for Family Entrepreneurship. Then she says, we're thinking of franchising. So she goes to the Fareed Franchise Institute. Now, she's in that process, she says, boy, I think there's an opportunity for some significant capitalization of this. We got a big business. If we do franchising, we could do this. And, oh, my God, we could grow globally. And she gets all excited. She says, well, let's go to the Stephen D. Cutler Center for Investments and Finance. So there's a highly customized program that is scalable to any person at Babson College. I'd like to say it's for any person anywhere. How do we partner so that you can be a part of this in any way you want? And I guarantee you have something we want. And we can make a deal. This is, for you Americans, Patrick Henry was a Revolutionary War guy, said, we either hang together or we hang separately. So I am absolutely committed to doing partnerships as a way to build this ecosystem, and frankly, as a way to improve the business model of higher education, which is a lousy business model. Is this being recorded? It is a lousy business model, and 75% of all the colleges are in trouble. That's not good. We got to figure out how to make it good. Okay. And then there was a deep responsibility at the Metropolis Institute. Metropolis Institute for Technology Entrepreneurship, mighty. Retailer, again, I can't help myself. We're really trying to dig deep into the organization and give the organization a clear set of support systems. We're raising money, we're looking for special projects. We want some craziness to go on here. This isn't for the common practice. And we're trying to pour it through the organization. What stakeholder has what interest in, and how will AI support that? And who are the crazy people that want to do projects around that? Go find them and find a little bit of money to fund them and watch what they can do. Especially if you can we're now up to 20,000 co-pilot interactions a month. So far this year we've done 130,000, but the slope of the curve is pretty steep. So the acceptance, the adoption rate is really remarkable. Lots of different ways in which we're trying to get this done. We also, I get excited. We're also trying to make sure that in the classroom there's a support system for faculty that allows them to have a deep understanding of what to do. And I think it is important. One of the most important things we did is we have all freshmen at Babson have to start a business in a team called the Foundations of Management and Entrepreneurship. To complete that course, you have to be badged in AI now. You can't get your grade. So I'm thinking, you tell an 18-year-old what to do. You're looking for a fight. If you said, listen, I want you to party every Friday night, there's some segment that would protest in the president's office. You can't make us party. So 100% of the students got it done before the end of the semester. There was not one student. What they said was it wasn't enough. You have to do more. We want a second level of badging. Steve, do your job better. It was unbelievable. And as an example, very selfish example, franchising is where I come from, wrote my dissertation, did all that kind of stuff. By the way, for you academics, compile everything, find a way to get your president to fund this. Compile everything you've ever done in your field. Podcasts, articles, syllabi, notes, books, chapters, papers, cases, put it all together. It's unbelievable. By mistake, you've created an amazing amount of data. And what happens so I did it for franchising because that's what I do. The dissertation, the books, the papers, the cases, all of that was about franchising. And we created a franchise heuristic. There's a bot and there's another piece. So you can get to decision-making to look at franchising as a scaling mechanism very quickly. You can make these decisions early and often by going to this. There's 1,700 franchise company documents in the database now, and it continues to grow. What you will find is it explores your expertise and the expertise of the people that you really believe in, and it reminds you of who you are. I got to tell you, you ask the heuristic a question. You put a student puts the business plan in, it says, this is why it'll make a good franchise, here's where it won't, here's how you might think about improving it. And I read it and I say, oh yeah, I remember I used to know that. It is amazing how it brings your memory back to you, and it makes you a better professor by having this repository of your understanding. I find it to be an amazing tool. And I tell you, all the research that I'm doing says that you're more important than ever. It is not replacing you, it's leveraging you. It is not taking away your humanity unless you absent yourself from it. If you intersect with it, this is a great tool. If you don't, I think it's a problem. So I would really encourage you to do that reading to understand what your role is. The ability to scale your expertise now is remarkable. When I retire as president, I want to teach a class of 1,000 students franchising. And then when I do 1,000, I want 10,000. And when I do 10,000, I want to do 100,000. Then I'll probably die. But that's okay. You're going to leave a mark that is incredibly scalable. And it leaves other people who can do things better than I can do to do their job. And I think the impact on teaching is going to be amazing. And I believe now, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail kind of thing. Babson is about entrepreneurship, but about entrepreneurial leadership and the intersection of AI and the human perspective, and the human perspective as leader in an entrepreneurial environment. A mouthful of that, but I think entrepreneurial leadership in AI is the next wave of entrepreneurship education that we're focusing on. And those are the kinds of things that I think sort of are the architecture of entrepreneurial leadership. And let me tell you, it does not say startup there. It applies, I think, very, very clearly. I love startups, don't get me wrong. It applies very clearly to startups, but so much more. It opens the aperture of market demand for your teaching massively wide. You now can teach, you must teach everyone some entrepreneurship. It is like reading, writing, arithmetic, and entrepreneurship. If you don't have all of those, I don't know how you function in a current world, let alone what the future holds. And our ability to get that information to lots of markets now is so exciting. You can hear and tell and understand the great minds, and we can get that information to you. And in that model, I think we have to look at all the components of your business model. How do you do this in the classroom with cases, with classes in cases, in practice, executive education, driving practitioner articles, and in academia? Listen, our model in academia is that we have to have an intellectual framework so that we're proving what we're doing in the classroom has validity. I love that model. I went and got I was the worst PhD student in the history of the world. I suffered through the whole, I had a great advisor who beat me to death to get it done. But it did teach me the discipline of understanding of rigorous research to make sure what I was bringing to the classroom was important and proven, or at least close enough that there was real value added to that. So we did a whole series of intellectual capital. We have what I believe is a seminal work. Scott Taylor, if I have any question about life, I tend to go ask Scott Taylor. About leadership, he is the international guru in entrepreneurial leadership. A brilliant mind, a psychologist by PhD training, and a strategist by business training. And we said, okay, the paper was 3 or 4 years in the making when we decided entrepreneurial leadership was important. It got published last year to great acclaim, and we have a series of other papers that we're supporting. We're going to continue the research in entrepreneurial leadership, and with a clear understanding of what its intersection is with teaching and with AI. Then I said, okay, this was at, I don't recommend this. And unless you're sort of at the end of your career, and what are they going to do? So at graduation, the college president has to give a little speech at graduation. It is typically the most boring speech of the entire ceremony, and I'm tired of it. I said, just skip me. I'm not that good at it anyway. And nobody wants to hear. They want to go have a beer with their son or daughter, or they want to go party, they want to give them a hug, they want to do something else but listen to me. I got to make it interesting. They were so opposed. They were so opposed to me doing this. But I said, we're going to go live, and we're going to have a big screen, and I'm going to have the computer, and I'm going to type in this. Yeah, ChatGPT. So it comes back. The first thing I said, oh, I think this is going to work. I could feel my heart rate slow down after that came up, because it was nice to me. And you don't know what is going to happen, but we're teaching entrepreneurship. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You have a plan. I got it. You're really smart. I got it. We're all the students, and that's what we teach. But you got to go out and you got to do, and you got to experiment, and you got to take risk in that. So I had him read that, and then I said, couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you.
Wow, wasn't that fun? Isn't he wonderful? Don't you feel inspired to do this work when you hear from him? Bravo. So this is what we do at the GCEC. We bring in fantastic speakers to our conference. We bring them to our webinars online, and we give the inside knowledge. Didn't you feel like you were seeing what was really going on at Babson College when you heard from Steve? And that's what we're all about at the GCEC. So next up, we have our first panel about teaching, how entrepreneurial teaching and engagement is evolving inside and outside the classroom in this post-AI world. Excuse me. I'm going to welcome back Ted Zoller to the stage. He's going to moderate this panel. And I'd also like to welcome Jeff Reed from Georgetown University, Leslie Robinson from Colorado State University, and Nick Rokop from Illinois Institute of Technology. Unfortunately, Emily had to leave, so Emily from GoDaddy will not be with us, but we have a wonderful panel, so come on up, guys.
Is this on? Is this on? All right. We're going to have a little fun. We're going to have a little fun. I don't know how you follow up Steve Spinelli. Holy crap.
I was thinking the same thing.
I am so jealous. I want him as our president, you know? Maybe I just need to go work at Babson College. But at any rate, I'm really excited. When I started the session before, we were actually kind of putting together the fact that AI is truly changing the face of entrepreneurship. And Dr. Spinelli actually put that in context as it relates to our discipline. We have some great thought leaders, and I'm going to ask each of you to start by introducing yourself, what you're principally focused on now, and how you're leveraging AI to do it.
All right. Thanks, Ted. So my name is Jeff Reed. I'm the founder of the Entrepreneurship Initiative at Georgetown University. Our university in Washington, D.C. builds on a 450-something-year-old Jesuit education tradition. And we're trying. I'm still in the early stages of building what I think can be a world-class entrepreneurship program. We love learning from people like Steve and Babson and colleagues here. We've got a lot going on, right? I think a couple of the big thrusts we're trying to do are to kind of take entrepreneurship beyond that kind of business school, only students that want to start businesses, right? We're trying to make it a university-wide initiative, and really some of the same themes around entrepreneurial leadership, around entrepreneurship as a life skill. Like, how do you use it to deal with a world full of disruption and uncertainty, and taking risks, and figuring out how to make shit happen in a world that's just crazy right now. So in terms of how we use AI, we've got our I put out a note to our faculty and said, how are we using AI? And I know it's probably the same as a lot of schools. We're using it as a co-pilot for students, coaching, mentoring. One of the biggest challenges in entrepreneurship education, as well as education broadly, is the ability to reach each individual student at their own level and where they need help. Our traditional model of higher ed has one person speaking to a group, right? It's batch processing. And that probably isn't the right way to do it in any type of educational format, but certainly not in entrepreneurship education, where every student might be trying to do something different by nature. If they're entrepreneurial, they're trying to do something creative. So that ability to give individual attention is a lot of where we think AI has power. So I'll stop there. We can get back to more later. I'll give our colleagues a chance to talk.
Leslie.
Yes, howdy. I'm a howdy girl. Dr. Leslie Robinson, coming from Colorado State University, but really offering a perspective of more of a multi-case use study of how I've used AI across higher education, specifically at a public state institution, land-grant institution at Colorado State University, previously at the University of Texas at Austin as the founding director of the Kendra Scott Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute. And then also currently with the University of Tulsa with an accelerator that is for Cherokee women that is sponsored by Cherokee Nation in collaboration with the university. And so my perspective is really more from the founder use. So how can you invest in AI for yourself as the founder? How can you use it more with an equity lens? And how can it serve you as a co-founder? So research is focused on gender and entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial leadership, but I really don't talk oftentimes about the business. I focus more inside founder focus. And so excited to share the stage with y'all.
And Nick.
So I'm Nick Grokup, and I'm the Coleman Foundation Clinical Professor of Entrepreneurship at Illinois Institute of Technology. I started there in 2007. I was an entrepreneur who came into academia. I began by running our entrepreneurship center, which was very small, 2 people and an office. So I had the good fortune, actually, of being able to work all across the university, because that's how I lived my life. I was always reaching out and breaking down barriers and silos as an entrepreneur and trying to do things a little bit differently. So when I realized the business model, as Steve mentioned, of the university, one thing I found out at that time is the university didn't care much about entrepreneurship at the time. Why? Because our center, which was very small, didn't bring in students, so no tuition, didn't do research, so no grants. Philanthropy we had, because we were funded by one of our very wealthy alums. So I learned that, and I decided, all right, well, let's see how to have a little bit more influence in the academy, so I became a professor. So I've been teaching now since 2013, but I bring all of that practical and barrier changing or barrier breaking models to my teaching. I run 2 master's programs, and in each of those programs, I basically run an entrepreneurship studio. Think of an architectural studio or artist studio where they actually either make models or build things. In all of my studios, students actually build businesses. And a number of them, when they graduate, they actually follow on and run that business. A couple years ago, when generative AI began, I'm not very process-oriented, and I don't care about sort of policies. The university was just trying to figure out how to use AI. My view was, use AI. Just figure this thing out. And what I realized is, it's a tool. And as a tool, you need to actually learn how to use it. Think of being a craftsman. If you have a hammer and you're not a craftsman, maybe you can bash a few nails, maybe you can break a few things. But if you're a craftsman, you can use that hammer to make a really good piece of furniture. So in my view, learning about the tool, how to use the tool, and making something with that tool is really the high-level way that I've been promoting using AI. And we'll talk maybe a little bit more, but that's enough for now.
Well, if you want to know exactly how to use AI, let me tell you exactly how everybody should be using AI. No, I'm just kidding. Because I think Steve told me beforehand, like, if anybody tells you they know what they're doing or they have the answer, then you should run away, right? Because we're all figuring it out.
Why
But
don't
I
we
agree.
ask ChatGPT right now?
Real time.
I just want to take stock for a moment. Just, we're at this point in the conversation where everyone's starting to check their email and so forth. But this is something you all need to wake up for. We've been confirmed. Now we have evidence, starting with President Spinelli, Steve, then Jeff, then Leslie, then Nick. This is becoming mainstream. Back in the 90s, we were talking about Moore's Law. Remember that? We're so past Moore's Law now. And, I'm thinking of the singularity. The singularity was predicted to happen in 2033, by, golly, who's the guy who came up with it? Yeah.
Ray Kurzweil, right?
Ray Kurzweil. Thank you for being my brain as I atrophy and AI is taking over. So there you go. We are at the singularity. We're going to be at the singularity much faster than I think even Ray Kurzweil had said. So there you go. I'm going to challenge the group to now predict a bit what's going to happen. And this is a hard one. If you could see in the future 1 year, just 1 year, where do you think AI is going to be influential in developing entrepreneurship, both as a practice and as pedagogy?
We're going to have fire raining from the sky, cats and dogs living together. No.
You're not. Actually, it's kind of funny because when you think about it, we're all. Let's be honest with each other. We're all trying to figure this out. We're all experimenting. I mean, who here knows what they're doing? Truly, we have an expert in AI in here. Raise your hand. That was Jeff's point of view. We're all making it up. But I would love for the people that are leaning in to share, and I would love for you all to share as well. But please, Jeff.
I mean, I do think, like, the reason I do what I do is my first love was not entrepreneurship. It was education. And when I was a graduate student at the University of North Carolina 30 years ago, I was reading books and hearing stories about this giant wave of change coming to higher education because of technology. At that time, it was because of the internet. And that wave kind of inspired me to lean in and be a part of this change in higher ed. And I found entrepreneurship to be a great way to do that. I haven't seen that change hit. At least it's happened, but maybe not as a big wave like was predicted at the time. I think that is coming now. That wave is happening. And I think that entrepreneurship education, most of us don't have the luxury of working at a pure play university. Like Babson is entrepreneurship. Like they are the only pure play entrepreneurship university, and they're amazing at it. Most of us work at places that there are a lot of other priorities, and entrepreneurship may be way down the list. But I think higher ed is now facing dramatic change, and I think entrepreneurship education is often at the cutting edge of the broader university, right? The things that we've been doing for a long time around practical education, around experiential learning, the things that we've done have helped infiltrate across the campus in a lot of ways, and I think that's what's going to happen with AI as well. I think our institutions are all struggling with how to deal with AI. It's like you've pointed out, like nobody really knows for sure. We know there's disruption. We know that disruption creates opportunity, and it's up to us to help our institutions figure out how to deal with that, because there's a reckoning coming for a lot of schools that can't figure that out.
Right on, right on. Leslie, what do you see?
I see AI as an empowerment tool. I really see it in terms of a great equalizer. I think in terms of the mindset of adapting AI to a founder versus the founder to AI is the perspective that I bring. And so I think about the historically underrepresented, underestimated identities, and this is a tool that can begin to eliminate some of the challenges and barriers that these founders face, and especially in terms of finding more balance, being able to be more efficient, to have time to look for funding, to look for resources, to build confidence, to be more future focused, to be more comfortable taking risks. These are oftentimes competencies. They are competencies that entrepreneurial leaders have, but it's competencies that you have to cultivate. And so I think if you can use AI as a tech for good platform, then that's really where I see the disruption coming in, and I'm excited for that. So more on the tech for good route.
I'm excited for that too. Nick, how do you follow that one up? Good luck.
Thank you. No, so I'm going to take it and abstract it up a few levels. So I try to teach my students as well to look at overall trends, large trends. And I've been involved and I guess most of you have gone through the .com, so the internet hype. Then I was involved a lot in the nanotech hype. And now I think we're in the AI hype. We're at that point where everybody is pointing to this technology that, it's a foundational thing. It will make a change in how we do things, but we don't know how it's going to be. But I see it in a similar way that as the internet happened, we don't think today, sure, we still use the word internet, but I mean, it's such second nature to actually have information at our fingertips. We don't think about nanotechnology inside, even though lots of applications for that are, whether you're wearing it, the coatings on your eyeglasses, whether it's in electronics, whatever. We don't think about that. We just think about what benefit it brings to us. We're not going to be talking about AI in that way pretty shortly, because it's all about what benefit it brings to you and what application you can create to actually make the world a better place. So I want people to be looking at this in a higher level than in this very specific hype way.
That is such an inspired way of following that up because, basically your argument is that it's going to be baselined. We're just going to assume it, and then we're going to build on it. We're going to create derivative off of it. It's very exciting to me. I'm a big fan of James Surowiecki, The Wisdom of Crowds, and I just was curious if I could poll the audience here to ask you, how many of you believe AI will fundamentally change entrepreneurship as a practice and discipline? Can you raise your hands? Okay. For those of you who are not raising your hands, you're welcome to go see the thing on, no, I'm just joking. I want to return.
Ted, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
So you just had that question.
Please.
How many of you right now are actually using AI in a really meaningful and powerful way? So you really think so? Okay, great.
So we're preaching to the crowd here. This is all right. You all, we should flip this, somehow. Leslie, I want to return to you. Your thesis is this is going to equal the playing field. And, entrepreneurship is kind of like, if the rules of the game are available to everyone, everyone's going to win, and it'll bring everyone up. Your work in Oklahoma, your work at Colorado State has been working with, generally historically disadvantaged communities. How do you see AI playing a role in supporting this great reset we need to bring everyone back to the table?
Well, we know that there's varying uses and comfort levels, trust levels with some of the AI tools. And so I think at the core, AI is only as good as the user, but it's also only as good as inherently good the person is using AI. And so
we're in trouble.
So I worry, right? I worry about that too. And just a disclaimer, I'm an enthusiastic executor who likes to leave sessions with takeaways. So I've got lots of things I'm really excited to tell you about, and promising practices, not best practices because this is evolving, but promising practices in how you can use AI. I mean, over and over again, I'll probably say, and I hope that we all say, that it's not a one-size-fits all tool, right? We really need to take in consideration the user, in our case, our customer, the founder, when they're using AI, and especially in terms of it as a concept as a co-founder. I mean, I like to also use the word as a collaborator. It should supplement and not replace. And so I think the mindset has to be there that we have to train and have the AI tools that we're using, and let's use ChatGPT just to get specific, to know who we are as a person, as a human. What are our values? What's our mission? What's our vision? What's our why? I recently used ChatGPT specifically to really hone in on my voice so that it knows my positionality, it knows my identities, it knows who I am at the core, all the introspective work that I've done, to then really be a little bit more authentic. And so I encourage founders to really invest in AI as a tool to get to know who they are as a person. And so a really clear example of this is I just got trained in Gallup StrengthsFinder. How many of y'all know Gallup StrengthsFinder and have taken your top 5 or your top 34 and, upload that? Put that into your ChatGPT. It's immediately going to know a little bit more about who you are and your motivations, how you build businesses, teams, how you think. But also I use it more in terms of the blind spots that I have as a founder, as an educator, in terms of self-disclosure. I have empathy really low and context really low. And so I'm always looking for my blind spots when I am putting things into ChatGPT. And so I think that that's incredibly powerful in terms of also understanding how AI can work for you, with you, and not the other way around. So I think that's, promising practice number one. The other thing is that different founders need different entry points. And so there's a lot of assumption that everybody is using AI. And so we have to really understand that there's varying levels of this. And so you have to be intentional. And I come more from the outside of the classroom perspective of equalizing the playing field from the very beginning, from day one of an accelerator, from day one of a class. Understand how the class, the students, your audience, how they are using AI, and include that in orientation. I think that there's a lot of assumptions being made about just access as well to AI tools. And so don't overwhelm, right? Be really intentional, go deep into 2 to 3 tools as introductions, and then bring in case studies, peers, especially the representation piece is really important about how specifically you can use certain tools. And so I've really found that as a promising practice. And then the other thing that I'll mention is that you really shouldn't. AI really shouldn't teach certain things, teach you. You have to do the hard work. I call it the heart work on who you are. And so I'm seeing stats come out about AI as being used for coaching and counseling and advising. And I love that because it makes entrepreneurship specifically less lonely. But we also still need to invest in ourselves and our opinions and our bias and look for that in the responses that we're getting or the interactions that we're having with the tool. And so the things I don't think that AI should teach us is that introspection, the confidence, the being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? You only get that by putting yourself in challenging situations, surrounding yourself with different perspectives. And so, I encourage us still to get our information elsewhere, to really look for the bias in the response and have the gut reactions to what it is that's being maybe fed back to us.
So well said. I want to build on that and drill that down a little bit. It's interesting. I was privileged to be at the kickoff of the Global Flourishing Study. And if you haven't heard of that, the Global Flourishing Study is going to kind of be an important longitudinal approach toward trying to understand what flourishing is as a global phenomena. And they study 5 different dimensions. And one of the dimensions is economic sustainability. And I see in that undercurrent, and thanks to Steve Spinelli, entrepreneurship. Steve also gave us a call to action to really build this into a global model that unleashing entrepreneurship plus AI globally. Jeff, you just flew here from Rwanda. And,
Boy, my arms are tired.
And your bags are probably huge because you had to go from there right to Indiana. Tell us a little bit about your experience in Rwanda. How are you seeing AI starting to change the nature of things happening there? And are they embracing it in the same way we are?
Well, first I should say I've been there once now. I'm not an expert. One of the things that did strike me was something I've heard Jonathan Ortman say for many years, is that entrepreneurs from any country around the world can kind of come together and they speak the same language of entrepreneurship. And we got to see that firsthand, and that was amazing. And I think one of the ways AI is being used there is that coaching and mentoring, right? Like in an ecosystem that is not as old or as developed as the startup ecosystems in other parts of the world, I think having that AI mentor is incredibly valuable, the coach that you can ask questions to. So we saw entrepreneurs doing that. We saw them using AI tools to build code. Our students were paired with entrepreneurs, and sometimes the entrepreneur asked the student to code something, and I give my students credit. Some of them had no coding experience, but they rolled up their sleeves and used AI to figure some shit out within like 2 days. So AI is there. It's global. It's being used, and I think we should all just expect it to help rise the level of activity all over the world.
I would invite my other panelists to comment on this, but I thought it would be a great opportunity, if it's not too awkward, whoever's running the AV, do you have handheld mics? Great. Who here would like to share a best practice of how AI is helping to level the playing field globally in expanding entrepreneurship as a field? Anybody want to share? I caught you off guard, I know. So be thinking about that. We'll return to you because I would like to flip this a bit. Do we have a hand up here? Okay, great. We'll just start with one. And please, could you share a little bit of where you are and what you're doing?
Yes. Hi, my name is Rhonda Taylor. I'm a former educator, retired from there. And yes, I am standing, so I can't. Right, I am standing. But so I run actually a couple of businesses. You know, everything I do is regarding entrepreneurs and helping them to, I meet them where they are and get them to the next level, whatever that means for that entrepreneur. One of the things that I love about AI, and I'm a part of a group, Women in Tech, and we talk about these things all the time and all the new things that can help us, you know, do what we need to do in business and automate as much as possible so we could work on the heart of things versus, you know, I got to send these emails, I got to do this, blah, blah, blah. So I found several AI tools that will basically be a worker for you and automate a lot of those things that you don't do. So I use Sintra, S-I-N-T-R-A. No, they're not paying me for this. But it's amazing because I have 12 little workers that have their specialty. One that's tech, one that's all about marketing, one that's about, you know, developing, personal development, one's just literally an AI assistant. I can go in and ask it a question, and it'll give me a nice answer, and then it will continue to work in the background, giving me other ideas and say, I put together a 12-step, you know, personal development plan to help you learn how to be a better speaker. I put together a marketing campaign to help you get more people into your business, et cetera, et cetera. And then I can accept it or not. And then the things that it's doing, though, are things that I hadn't even thought about. And so it's helping me be a better business person, but then I'm also sharing that with my clients. And I'm saying, hey, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And so Century, you have to pay for it, but there's other things very similar to that that are free. And so that's one way that I'm using AI to leverage everything that I do with my business and sharing that with my clients. And it's being very successful.
Can I ask, could you share how we can be in touch with you? Do you have LinkedIn or email?
Absolutely. I am on LinkedIn. It's Rhonda Taylor, R-O-N-D-A, Taylor, T-A-Y-L-O-R, on LinkedIn. So if you find me, it might say Rhonda Taylor, PhD, or something like that. Okay. But yes,
good.
Please
Thank
connect with me. I'm happy to share. I have a whole list. I will share that entire list with everybody, okay?
So if you ever, thank you so much, Rhonda. That's fantastic. You know, it's funny. You go through life, and there are people that are really cool and people who are nerds. And I got to admit, I'm a nerd. I'm a total nerd. Star Trek is my North Star, which tells you a lot about me. In fact, I had a class just recently, I had an MBA student who gave me a little plaque that says Captain Ted Zoller, the USS Enterprise. And it was like the biggest moment of my life. No, I'm just joking. But talking about nerds, you know, I know, Nick, you're an unabashed nerd because you work at a place that's filled with nerds. You know, you're probably the only engineer up here. Is that right? Right? We're all poets, I believe. So could you drill in a little bit, and then I'm going to challenge us poets figure out what tools are available. You know, a lot of us have had our opening experience with ChatGPT, maybe with Copilot, but there's so many other tools and so many other ways to use specialized AI. Could you give us a sense of what's available and how we can drill for them?
Yeah, well, but first thing, we use this term AI very loosely. I think most of you, I might be wrong, but I think most of you are using generative AI with the interface like ChatGPT. How many were doing and using AI prior to the release of ChatGPT? A few of you, right? So at our university, we've got people who are actually writing AI. We actually have an AI major that has really literally nothing to do with the ChatGPT large language model interfaces. There's a whole lot more to AI than just large language models. I don't know if you saw yesterday the panel that Rebecca ran where Christian was doing that whole AI agent thing and how quickly he went. I mean, that was a lot of show, but I can tell you that if you do processes sequentially like that with large language models, with every one of them having an error, that error is going to compound like crazy. And I'm of the opinion, certainly currently, that the generative AI particularly, and that's the danger with LLMs, because of just the way they work, and I don't know if you saw Alex Cohen's pretty decent, pretty good high-level explanation of how they work, but there's a big bit of randomness in there. And in order to get that randomness out, you've got to use a lot of other AI methodology and tools. A lot of people don't understand that. And the nerds, are working on a lot of these methods to not only use the generative AI, but some of the newer tools like the RAG and, all, mathematics-based. I mean, a lot of this started with machine learning. Actually, it's kind of funny because back in 1974 when I graduated from Carnegie Mellon, I was in that first class when AI was actually being developed for kind of, in the 50s it was conceived and then it was actually being developed. That was sort of the first wave. We've had waves of AI, like I think we're on the fourth one. But you need to be, you need to understand the tools. Again, I go back to that tools thing. What's the tool for? How do you use it? How do you get better at it? Really, really understand the limitations. That's the biggest thing. I could talk a lot about that, but I'm not going to. But be really careful about how you use it.
So literacy would begin with trying to dig into what was machine learning, how large language models are created, how ultimately they find themselves in generative AI, then how that generative AI is designed to meet certain problems. And this is where experimentation is occurring, everyone. And this is where I would like to call on the audience, and I'm going to ask the person with the microphone to pass it around. We are trying to advance entrepreneurship. President Spinelli gave us the call to action to try to make this a global phenomenon. All of us know that there are different needs in different communities, in different contexts, some of them technical, some of them economic. All of us need to embrace it. I would like for you to share how you're advancing your work using a specific AI for a specific purpose, and I'm going to work it around hype from the panel. Okay, right now I'm recording this with Otter AI. So it's recording, and it'll infer information from it. I've got Bard. I'm using ChatGPT. I'm actively building a mechanical Turk right now for new venture creation. And by the way, that sounds like a terrible word, but that's the term of art. Mechanical Turk is when you train the AI for specific questions and you retain that search over time. So I don't mean to talk about my stuff, but I have a method called the 6Ms, and it's an accelerated learning platform solving a simultaneous equation. And for each of those dimensions, we have an AI backbone, and we're building a mechanical Turk through the input of various students asking the same question around market research, around implementation, around financial modeling, around innovation and design. Could we share, to get the ball rolling with the audience, specific settings where we're using specific AIs for specific purposes, and how did you find that tool?
I'll go. Yeah. So incorporating AI, especially in terms of different landscapes, accelerators, programming models. I mean, I'm going to stick with ChatGPT because that's the entry tool, right? That's the one that is the most accessible and the one that I feel comfortable introducing to some different groups that I've been working with. And I think in terms of, and you've heard this, but using AI, ChatGPT as a mindset tool is really powerful. And so I think that that's also really important. Start with why, always. Simon Sinek, start with why. I think that really helps then with generating the mindset of how then you can iterate, how you can be creative, how you can use the tool in different ways. When I used, let's keep with ChatGPT with students at UT Austin or at Colorado State University, it was more as a tool that was a co-creator and creative tool and disruptor. But when I've used ChatGPT with accelerators, especially for Native American Indigenous women, it's not necessarily the novelty of the tool that's been impactful. It's actually been using it more operationally, right, to be more efficient in finding the ways that the tool could create more time, especially for working mothers, to be in areas that don't have such access to tech or more rural. And I think that that is really important too, because all of a sudden the challenges and barriers that we know are facing, and let's say with women specifically, AI is starting to address that. I've seen success with using ChatGPT to apply for grants, to apply for accelerators, to look for funding. Those are the main challenges that some of these groups face, and so I really encourage that use. The other thing is, at CSU specifically, we just started our Student Venture Accelerator this week, and so on Monday, I had everyone put a prompt in, and so this is just a creative way to kick off the program. These are all early stage solopreneurs, and so the prompt was, what would your AI co-founder do today? So we did StrengthsFinder, we did our EMP profiles, we did our conflict resolution. So they input those results. I use that as a specific example. But then all of a sudden, they're able to focus more on their strengths, what they love doing versus what drains them, especially early on in the process of venture creation. I like to say more values creation. And also, like, what would AI take off your plate? And so as they're looking for co-founders or first hires, all of a sudden it's a reshift of, oh, I need to hire a CTO, a chief technical officer. No. Actually, maybe you need to hire a chief relationship officer with all your executing and strategic. So I think that that's really important because it keeps the joy in the early stages of what you're good at, and those early wins are really critical, especially as you're testing out different ideas. The other thing that I'll mention that has been a little bit of an aha is training coaches and mentors and judges about how founders are using AI in terms of this isn't cheating, this is still creative work, but we have to teach our founders how to own it, how to disclaim it, how to cite it. And so that was a really interesting conversation that I think is important to bring up, is that we have to also manage expectations around how founders are using AI. And though we might encourage it and see it as a tool for good, not everyone does. And so especially as we're shifting higher education and the mindset around tools like this, it's an evolving conversation. There's different takes on it. It's fascinating. We also have to just remember that those that are interacting with students that we're encouraging this tool with also might have different opinions.
Absolutely. I want to turn to Jeff, but real quick, I want to just interrupt. I'm going to take advantage of a cool opportunity, and it will take a little preparation on your part. I want to invite people in the audience to actually join us on the panel. We have a blank seat down here. And this is what I'd like to do. After Jeff responds to the question we have, I wanted to do one additional question, and that is, how is your institution supporting the transition? In the same way that Steve has built a new center around it. It was just established and now is becoming baseline. And Babson has made a huge investment in AI. I'd love to learn more about what your institutions are doing to support that transition as well. But for purposes of the last prompt, it would be how you're using specific AI to advance your work in entrepreneurship. You're going to have an opportunity to sit in that chair with a mic, tag a friend next to you to take a picture so that you can put it on your socials to say that you are on the panel and participating as an active member of the panels. And we're going to have people do it. Not yet, but if you want to do it, actually, please, go ahead. I was going to wait. But please go on.
The bold change the world.
Please, own it.
Be bold.
That's right. Be bold. That's right. Okay, who's got the picture, though? Who's got the picture? All right, good. We got the picture, and it's going to be texted. Okay, now you have to share what is your specific AI and how is it advancing your work?
Hi, my name is Marcus Dunlap. I'm from all the way from 4 miles from here in Indianapolis, Indiana. I do personal and professional development trainings and seminars. And so now, because of this type of technology, when I'm talking to a company or an individual about how I can best be of service to them in proceeding and developing and progressing their development, I can actually go to, have you heard of Grok?
No.
Nobody's talked about Grok at all.
Grok?
There's 2 Groks. Well, this Grok thing is like a human being is in your house. So you can ask it something about how to do something better like you do AI, and then it won't go off. I've asked it questions about how to do this better, and then I say, okay, thank you, and then I'll leave to go cook dinner, and it's like, are you still there, Marcus? We're here. What else can we do for you? Were you satisfied with what we did? I said, well, could you turn off, please? And it won't turn off. So anyway.
So Grok.
Great, G-R-O-K.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've been told that people are going to be saving up all their dollars for their first robot. So as opposed to buying your first car, it's going to be your first robot.
I think this was developed by Elon Musk. it's one of his products. But anyway, so I'll ask AI, what is the best way to advance this person's business? And I'll input all this information, and it'll tell me things that maybe I would have not thought of. I've been doing personal development seminars and trainings for 40 years. I'm also a helicopter pilot, and I love flying helicopters to my seminars or to a seminar, because that's heaven on earth for me if I can fly a helicopter.
That's so
I'll take it to
badass.
Walmart, Dairy Queen, barbershop, church, and use it just to motivate kids. But anyway, that's how I would use AIs to do better development and curriculums and agenda for a company or a corporation or a school.
Thank you for sharing your cool city with us. This is a wicked city, and that's clearly filled with wicked people. Tell us what your name is again.
Marcus Dunlop. I'm
And,
on LinkedIn.
How do we get in
Marcus
touch
Dunlop.
with Marcus? How do
Marcus Dunlop. I'm on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn,
So if you put
okay.
in Marcus Dunlop, you'll see I've got a book out now called Build, and each letter's an acronym, but it's on LinkedIn.
Who here has not heard of Grok before walking into this room? Okay, I'm one of them too. Thank you so much. All right. So,
He wants to take away your nerd card.
oh, you know, I'm a closeted nerd. Maybe I'm in the closet too much. Please, thank you. Thank you so much. Let's give it a hand, please.
Thanks, Marcus.
That's fantastic. Marcus really set the bar. Jeff, do you remember the question I asked? I don't even
That's
remember.
okay. I'm just going to say what I want to say anyway. A couple of things that have struck me here. I have loved. I think everybody on the panel, and I think Leslie has done a great job of this, is talking about the human factors here, the why. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me, and how we're using AI and how we can use it, is to help our students, our entrepreneurs, like to think really hard about the why. And I think President Spinelli talked about this. Like, how do you leverage who you are? And I feel like our entrepreneurs are always struggling with a million priorities, a lot of things they're expected to do. I think AI can help them be themselves in a much better way. And I think to know your own strengths, to have the tools to augment your weaknesses, all those kind of things, those help you be a more successful entrepreneur, also flourish in life. So that's what I'm most excited about. Because, let's remember, we're representing higher education, universities. Our primary product is students, not startups. Right, so we're thinking about how do we develop human beings that may someday be entrepreneurs. Maybe it's while they're in school, but not necessarily. I like hearing that the finance majors someday become entrepreneurs. That's a lot of what we deal with, right? A lot of what we do is plant seeds that maybe someday will grow into an entrepreneurial venture.
I call it conversion therapy, right?
Yeah, or saving souls, or however it might be.
Humanity.
But that's the part that excites me the most. And when it comes to particular tools, I'm not sure. I mean, I love hearing about new things, but it's changing so rapidly. The best thing that I've experienced around this, I'll give credit to Holly and our team at GEC, right? We put together a webinar last year, and members basically shared. I remember Crystal from the University of Ohio, right? She went through these whole tools, and I went back and watched the video recently. Lots of different tools that she uses with her students, everything from using ChatGPT to do customer interviews, the idea formation, which you talked about too, like having students using AI to help come up with an idea that fits their own personality and interests. That gets them moving so much faster than, I guess I'll get stuck with this idea and have to work on something they don't care about. Things like that, and then using other tools to build slide decks and logos. And then our friend Paul Cheek from MIT kind of basically said, oh yeah, by the way, you input your idea and we've built an AI tool that generates a business plan in 10 seconds. So shit like that is happening, and it's great because it gets you so much faster down the path. Then, of course, you have to go back to the human side of things, and whatever AI gives you is not going to be the same necessarily as what your actual human customers would tell you. And so you do have to get out of the building and do all that stuff. But anyway, that's the part that I'm excited about, and the tools are going to continue to evolve.
So Jeff just cited Paul Cheek. Paul Cheek was at MIT, just recently moved to a new role, getting his career to the next level. He's part of Bill Aulette's team doing disciplined entrepreneurship. If you don't know that, you should really check it out. It's an incredible contribution. President Spinelli, you usually, by the way, most presidents are going to come into a keynote, have it all structured, and right after the keynote, they're heading for the door because they got to go raise money and stuff. Steve's sitting here, so I got to use him. Steve, will you come up and sit in the fifth seat just for a minute? I mean, it's too ridiculous. We got Michael Jordan here, and we're not even using him. By the way, I do want to take a moment just to say I want to give credit to Holly, because this would not have happened without Holly. Can we give Holly a huge round of applause? I mean, this is like spot on. She knows exactly what we need. So, Steve, I want you to tee us up for a minute. You've invested pretty heavily in AI. You were probably 2 years ahead of the curve. Most of your colleagues who are other college presidents have just woken up and are starting to develop things. A lot of them were doing data schools that seemed kind of lame, but you jumped in on it. How are you supporting your faculty? And then I would love to ask the other panelists, how are you being supported by your administrative leaders?
Looking at the sort of components of the delivery system for a Babson education: research, teaching, outreach, and the outreach through primarily the Arthur M. Blank School. So we have a fund for each of those components that is for the faculty, that says where do you want to engage in the AI exploration, through which component, and it could be one or it could be two or it could be all three. And the faculty decides what is the most important research project. The division chairs decide what is the most important teaching project, and the leaders of the Arthur M. Blank School decide what is the best interaction with their centers and institutes. And we raise money around each of those, and we hope that some of them will self-generate more money, and we'll just continue to have a venture fund for AI investigation.
That's awesome. So you're democratizing it. You're providing a structure for people, leaders, individual contributors to actually show their stuff.
Yeah, the democracy is, if you're better than someone else, you're going to get more money.
Right.
But yeah, it's
Isn't
a
that
competitive democracy.
I heard of that. It's called a
capitalism?
market, right? It's funny. We have a guy named Mark McAnally on my faculty, and he was ahead of me by 1 year on AI, and he started introducing an AI and venturing or AI and something, and it turned out that all the students who took the class came into my class with already completed business plans, as Jeff had said. And I was like, I better wake up and get my stuff in gear. It's extraordinary, these individual contributors, how they're taking lead. Curious, in your experiences with your institutions, how have you been led by outstanding people like Steve Spinelli, and has it come from the bottom up?
So in our case, it's certainly been mostly bottom up. We do have a Center for Learning and Innovation, for example, that does have some expertise in various tools, and we're encouraged to invest time and some effort into it. We just made a big switch from the Google education platform to Microsoft, so Copilot built in, all that. So we're not anywhere close to as well supported as Babson in the entrepreneurship side of things, but there are individuals who are driving some of the technology, some of the usages, etc. So, but it is bottoms up and it's individual. So
I'm curious, both Nick and Steve, did Microsoft come to you? Were they aggressive? Because I noticed both of you are citing Copilot as kind of baselined.
Yeah, they came to us, and we had a terrific set of relationships with them. They're supporting. We have a new facility called the Entrepreneurial Leadership Village, and they're providing all the infrastructure to create a technical support system for students living in the village.
So this is like a living learning environment. Holy crap. How do we learn more about that, Steve?
You got to come visit Steve Spinelli in Wellesley, Massachusetts. But I'll send you a whole bunch of stuff on the Herring. Mr. Herring is an alum, so he got to name it. And there's an easy way that any of you would like to name something at Babson. You can. But the Herring Entrepreneurial Leadership Village, we have a whole sort of presentation. I'll send it to you. It'd be good. But I would love for folks to come, practitioners, scholars, teachers, to come and see how we're doing that. The whole example of students living and learning in a highly concentrated environment around new venture creation and entrepreneurial leadership. We're trying to take that to another level.
I've trained, in my venturing work, I've trained a lot of doctors, MDs, And it's thrilling to me when I actually have a meeting with them and I'm intentionally late 15 minutes just to teach them a lesson. Do you understand the connection? And this is the time where I can tell Michael Jordan to go sit down. So Steve, you got to clear that seat for some of the other leaders here. So thank you for letting me call you in. I appreciate you, sir. Thank you. I'm grateful to you.
While he's getting off stage, our relationship, we're the only tech-focused university inside the city of Chicago limits, so we've been integral in the tech scene, and of course Microsoft is a big part of that. And we have some pretty high senior executives who are alums, so the relationship comes through that way. So.
Outstanding. Please, Leslie.
So at Colorado State, I really embrace intrapreneurship as well as entrepreneurship, so disrupting from within existing organizations. So totally agree. It's a bottoms up, it's more grassroots. It's 2 faculty champions who actually have roles within the Institute for Entrepreneurship who have seen the opportunity that institutes for entrepreneurship have in this current landscape, especially with funding. So the model that we've taken is to scale and have more open access, the curriculum that we teach that's open for all with our venture validator program, and make that available for faculty and staff to start to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset. So it's a mindset shift within higher education, which happens to be the research that I did in terms of higher ed as an institution, an industry ripe for disruption, and then how can we use the tools that we've created in entrepreneurship to then have that become more of the campus culture. And so though there aren't specific AI, it's about changing the culture shift first to then think about the mindset to then be more open on how other areas of campus can be opportunity seeking versus problem solving, and can really then start to think through the specific challenges that they might have. And one of the biggest challenges is the funding to be more revenue generating. And so trying to share that flourishing piece, flourishing as you learn and grow, you give back at the same rate so that the whole community garden grows with you. That's really how I try to live, and I think entrepreneurship is an empowerment tool for that. And so I love that we have a campus that's open for this, and we're building that scalability to change the mindset.
I love that opportunity thinking. As Steve said, value creating. What we're talking, it's funny, the economic gardening model is kind of coming back. And we've got to think about how we can recast it because it was kind of cast aside for a bit. I'm gonna ask Jeff to start up, but I want to make sure you remember the prompt. I'm going to ask you all to come up. We've only got about 10 minutes. I want to do as many as we can. Come up. I'd like you to share a specific thing you're doing and make sure you have somebody who's going to take social media for you, okay? Jeff.
So the changes that I see happening at Georgetown are mostly bottom up. Like we have, I think, a really good team of kind of internal innovation, like curriculum innovation. We've got kind of like your Skunk Works where they get to operate outside. If you have a unique curriculum proposal, you can go to them and they'll help fund new courses, but it has to break some rules somehow. So I like what they're doing and they're helping, but it's more generated by individual faculty who are basically saying, I'm going to try something, I'm going to do it. And I've seen some nice, on the one hand, I see our College of Arts and Sciences and more traditional disciplines just struggling to figure out how to deal with AI, right? They're like, oh, students are cheating. We need to put rules against it. We can't have it, right?
Forget it.
But in other disciplines, like in the business school, we see people saying, okay, our students need to know how to do this to be successful in life, so I need to know how to include it in my courses. So people are sharing whatever they're learning along the way, and our school has been putting together some nice kind of ways to share with each other and learn together. So I like that.
Have you all learned from this session? Has that worked? All right, cool. All right, we have 10 minutes. I want to do as many as we can do. So I want whoever wants to come down, stand, sit in this room. Yeah. All right, let's hit it.
First,
you gotta tell us who you are.
We could start a line over here somewhere.
Yeah, if you want to do a line, you're welcome to. I don't know if we'll get to everybody, but we're going to do as many as we can. Holly's going to hook us at 10:40. All right, hit us. What do you got? And what's your name?
It's
on already.
It's working? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Josh Jeffrey. Yeah, I'm Josh Jeffrey. I'm the founder and owner of Bench Innovation in Fort Wayne here in Indiana. I primarily do AI strategy consulting, and I use a whole lot of different tools. Right now, I'm using Roux code in VS Code. If you haven't heard about it, and you're a coder and a nerd like I am, then you can actually use this to use just basic language, natural language, to develop your own software in VS Code. I hate coding. I'm not a developer.
Who loves coding? Very
Nobody
few
loves
people.
coding,
I don't
right?
think anyone loves
Nobody
coding.
loves coding, but I.
Well, what? Okay. All
Okay,
right.
we got one.
Okay.
We got one. But like the coding can be very creative, and it can also be very tedious. And what I've found is that using these tools, you get at least 80% solution on what you're trying to get accomplished.
And what's the tool? What's the tool's name again?
Roux code.
Roux
but
code.
It connects to an API for what I use is Claude Sonnet 4, and I max out the reasoning on it because you kind of need that.
Okay, you're going to start nerding out, so we're going to
Yes.
cook you now.
I do have one last thing, is there's 2 books that I think everybody in this room should read if you're talking about AI. And one of them is Adopting AI, A People's First Approach by Paul Gibbons. And the other one is Agentic AI, and it's by Pascal, I think, Bennett or something along those lines. If you're going to read 2 AI books this year, read those books.
Okay.
So,
Good deal. Thank you very much. Good job.
Or have ChatGPT summarize the books for you.
No, read those books.
All right, next, come on up, please. We'll start out by who you are. And someone's got to do the social media very quickly. This is kind of cool, isn't it? We should actually do this in every conference.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to have the photo op, to be honest with you, because I've
Excellent.
already spoken.
Okay, all right, let's give her a
But I will-
okay, let's give you a real good photo op. Let's all lean
A
in.
real good lean in.
Just
Like
lean
this is amazing stuff, right? This is what I will say. I got a lot of messages that were asking about the Sintra, so I wanted to clarify that. It's Sintra, SINTRA.ai. That's what I use. And then I wanted to leave this little nugget, okay? AI is wonderful. I love it. I use it. There is no perfect AI out there, but there's a perfect AI for you. So don't be an AI junkie like me. Find what works for you. Don't hop from AI to AI because they all have something different and they all have something great. But find what works for you in your business and stick with it, because it's like a good employee, right? You cultivate that employee. You don't just keep changing out employees. So that's all I'll say on that. And thank you
You're
for the
the best.
opportunity.
That's awesome.
They're
Thank you very much.
polyamorous AI.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Next. Come on up. No, you're being deferential. You need to come up. All right, never mind. That's okay. Thank you. What's your name? Is it Andrea?
No, Amelia Peter.
Amelia. Okay, I've
Yes.
got bad eyes. There you go.
Okay, so I'm a teacher from the get-go. I have 20 years of experience in teaching. I used to teach chemistry and physics, and then I moved away completely from that and went into entrepreneurship. Why I'm here is because I think a lot of times we use AI in a way that we don't stay our authentic self. My husband and I were writing a motion last week to get more funding for students that cannot pay to study. And we're on an island, so you're secluded, you're not surrounded with anyone. And he was telling me, well, I think you should write this. And we would write, and I would think. And then we put it into ChatGPT to enhance it. We did I think about 10 takes via different AI models. We used our own creation. And we sent a few of the other creations, and everyone told us, hey, your own creation was better. So my tip to you is do the work, do the thinking, do the writing and scratching if you want to do it on your tablet or in a book. Enhance it with AI, see how you feel about it, and then keep moving from there because you have originality. Yeah, so go for it.
Yeah,
Very good.
Nice callback.
You know, one of my colleagues said using AI as a research assistant, not a ghostwriter. right? And make sure you maintain your own voice, which sounds like what you're saying there. I think that's a great point.
And by the way, AI hallucinates, so you have to be careful. AI will give you bad information.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Morgan Williams. I am a serial entrepreneur. I own Illumedia Marketing in Fort Wayne, Indiana, along with Williams Quality Pallets and Lumber, and I just started the Black Sheep Group last year, which is entrepreneurial mentorship and coaching, and I teach entrepreneurship at Ivy Tech College.
Let's give them some love right now.
So what I wanted to speak about is preparation. As an entrepreneur, as a former college and arena football player, preparation was everything when it comes to being successful. And when you look at, I'm pretty sure everybody in the room knows of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. I'm going to say something that's it's kind of controversial, but they're arguably two of the worst athletes in NFL history when you talk from an athletic perspective, but they were prepared every game. So they knew their pros and cons. And so with AI platforms and ChatGPT specifically, most people will put in, how can create me a business plan or a strategy, and they think that one strategy is going to be it. And if that was the case, we'd all be millionaires in here. And so there is a website called PDP Global, the PDP personality test, that tells you how you communicate to people and how you like to be communicated to, which is very important in understanding yourself. You could plug those results in ChatGPT along with your business or business idea, and it'll give you best strategy depending on who you are and how you communicate.
Does it work with generations as well, so you can talk to people who are older, people who are younger?
Absolutely. It's terrifying how accurate it is.
I can't
You'd think
talk
it
to
grew
young
up with you.
people. I mean, it's really intimidating.
It's great, yeah. So when it gives you...
It's intimidating. Yeah, it's great. That's not a secret.
No, I don't mean to. I'm sorry.
No. You're fine. So once you get the results, once you type in, here are my PDP results, this is the business that I'm doing, can you give me a great strategy? When it gives you that strategy, also ask ChatGPT, if none of these ideas work, give me a backup plan, disruptive management. What happens if all these bullet points you gave me fail? Because most people will go through these bullet points, and if they don't work out, then the business just doesn't work out.
Yep.
Plan A always doesn't work. So you have to be prepared in all aspects of entrepreneurship.
That is wise. Plan A doesn't always work. And AI could be your plan B, C, D, E, F, G.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nice work. Let's give it a round.
I am on LinkedIn, Morgan Williams. I'd love to connect with each and every one of you in the room. Thank you for the opportunity.
Morgan. That's awesome. So Holly, could you stand for a minute? So Holly is responsible to be the panel moderator for the next panel, and we have 4 people and 3 minutes, and that's not going to work. So I was going to ask, would you be willing to continue this tradition of the 5th chair in your session so that we can hear everyone? And you have to stay. That's the downside. Can you stay? Who can't stay? Can anyone not stay? Okay. Why not? Okay. Is that okay? Well, no, we're jumping the line. That's not cool. Let's go ahead. Let's do one more, and then we're going to close down the session. And what's your name, sir?
I'm Luis.
Oh, Luis.
Luis Salazar. I'm from Peru. I direct a master's in entrepreneurship and innovation management. And we encourage our students to use AI, but not a specific tool, because last year we were talking about AI. This year we're not talking about AI anymore. We're talking about AI agents. So it changes a lot. So we use it specifically for experimenting, as you said, to create ideas, but also for prototyping. Some to develop, let's say, websites, others to develop videos or mock-ups, whatever. But they're encouraged, and they're forced to use AI. And usually we have practitioners that we invite to the class. I encourage all of my professors to invite someone to their classes to tell them what is happening in that specific month that the class is being taught.
That's amazing, Luis. Can I ask you, do you have anyone taking a picture right now? Okay, no, let's do it. Okay, let's lean in. Everyone lean in one more time, because these people in Peru need to know what's going on here. Okay, thank you so much. Let's give a round, please. Thank you. Okay, believe it or not, there's a resource called There's an AI for That. So for those of you trying to scribble down, all these things we didn't know about, there's an AI for that, .com. I want to thank Nick Leslie, and Jeff. You all are rock stars, and we're so fortunate to have you kick off, I think, what was a good session.
And thank you, Ted.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Ted.
All right. Take care. Peace out.
Okay, I'm back. Wasn't that wonderful? Another round of applause for our first panel of this session. And I think one of the themes that came out of this is the human element. So now we're going to bring up a human. Tim Barnes from the Center for Entrepreneurs in London has developed, and with his team, an AI tool that he's using with founders to accelerate their startup ideas. So we've invited Tim to do about a 20-minute interactive demo of this tool. So Tim Barnes, everyone.
Okay. Just the microphone here. Let's see if it works. There's all sorts of ways in which this can go wrong. So this falls into the category of, never do anything with children and live demos. So the opportunity here for me to look incredibly stupid or even more stupid than usual is significant. But I've got some cover. So one of the ways that this might go wrong is the guy you can see in the little miniature down at the bottom right there, whose name is Johnny. So Johnny's joining us from London right now, and he's actually he's waving at you slightly. He can't actually see us because of the way the laptops are set up. So the other thing about trying to do a live demo for this is there's nowhere to plug in up here. So I'm actually going to do like half a static display of how it works. But if you've got a laptop or a tablet, you're going to be able to follow along and do some of these things for yourself. So feel free to rummage for your laptop or your tablet right now. If you've just got your phone with you, it's not going to be great for running the demo, but there are some QR codes and there's interaction in this in order to sort of keep you entertained. So let's see if the clicker works as well. No, clicker not working. Okay, hold on. Let me just try the other one. So, just going to tell you a little bit about who we are. Just see if my one works. There we go. My one works, it's fine. Just going to tell you a little bit about who we are first and what we do. In fact, I'm going to take this off because it's jangling. As Holly said, my name's Tim Barnes. I run a small charity-based think tank in the UK called the Centre for Entrepreneurs, which is incredibly complicated for anybody who's used to dealing with universities, because the first question I always get is, yeah, you're at the Centre for Entrepreneurs, at which university? But it's not, it's an independent body. I used to work in universities. I've taught in places like UCL, Cambridge, done some work with MIT. But what we now do is very different. We we were brought into being 15 years ago in order to look at the gaps in the UK's entrepreneurial ecosystem through original research and then develop programs to fill those gaps. And I want to say a little bit about that, because part of what I want to do today is explain where our idea has come from. This is me. That picture over there is me in my North Korean dictator pose. Which is a reminder, because it's actually a picture which I have in my house. It's about this size, and it's a picture of me made out of Lego, right? There is such a job in this world as a professional Lego artist. That is not something I knew when I was 10, and if it was, I would have had very different conversations with my parents about my future prospects. I use it when I'm dealing with students to remind people that most of the things that you do and you're going to be doing in future don't exist yet. Right? The jobs that you have, the roles that you have, how you work and what you do. So I run the Centre for Entrepreneurs. I built the world's largest university entrepreneurship center at UCL, working with twice as many startups each year as Harvard and MIT combined. We do various other things to sit on boards and things like that. I go around the world talking about entrepreneurship and public policy. And I've advised governments in different places, got awards, things like that. But the real thing is what we do, and it's a slightly different perspective. I'm just going to say a little bit about that because it informs some of where we get to and some of what it is that we're actually talking about. So we develop original research. And one of the things that we did a couple of years ago was a report into the UK's incubators and accelerators. And we found 860 programs that had run in the prior 18 months in the UK. I can't get an exact picture in the US, but I'm pretty confident that that's more than there are in the US west of Pennsylvania. Okay? It's a huge number. The UK is the most supported, accelerated startup community in the world. It's why we generally come number 2 or 3 in the international rankings. It also means there's a load of activity going on, but we're a charity. Now, we used to run a program that was one of the first accelerators. It was called NEF. We ran it over a period of about 13 years. We did 14 cohorts in that time. To this day, we have about 330 existing businesses that are still there, combined value of about $1.3, $1.4 billion. They've raised about 500 million in VC. There's about 6,500 jobs that have come out of that. It's good, right? The numbers that we had were good. But it was an in-person program. Put your hand up if you run an in-person program. Right, okay, they're finished. Or at least that was my conclusion. Right? The point being that, that there's a whole load of things you can't do when it's in-person only anymore. In fact, there's loads of things that you can't do and loads of conclusions that came out of what it was that we were trying to put together. That combination of our own experience of running things and what we saw everybody else doing. So just tell me a little bit about you. Who's got their phone out? Wave your phone in the air. Okay, marvelous, pretty much everybody. So tell us a little bit about you. This is the bit where it goes potentially badly wrong. Oh gosh, this tech thing's kind of working out. It might actually work somewhere. So tell us a little bit about you. You did a raise of hands when Ted was doing this, but just tell us a little bit about who you are, what kind of individuals we have in the room, just to get us going here. 1, 2, 5, 10, 14, 17. Let's get to 20. 21. Okay. Let's, you can keep going as we add them in. Whoa. Oh, look at that dynamic. Okay, so about half of you think of yourselves as ecosystem builders. Whether or not, whatever it is, whatever kind of program it is, this is hugely aimed at what you do. Who's the something else? Does anybody, you don't have to, this is all anonymous, but is anybody something else who wants to tell us what the something else is? Oh, yeah. That was so smooth. Do you actually carry a CV with you? Because it's going to be welcome right now. So there's a whole load of people out here who are hopefully going to find this useful. So we built a tool out of this, the insight that we'd generated, that's useful to people who are trying to start businesses, but the actual market, I'm going to come to at the end, is the people that run programs. So another version of Ted's question. Who uses AI in your job today? Now, before you start filling this one in, I want you to know that this is anonymous and you can be honest, right? Actually, are you using OpenAI or ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or anything else for an actual job? Like, yes, I use it lots means, you know, I use it every day and I've taken processes out that I've mostly kind of outsourced to the OpenAI. I'm down to 10% of writing papers, you know, to Jeff's comment a second ago with a research assistant there. Or is it, I've kind of played with it, I use it for things, but it's not actually working in my day-to-day routine. That's the have you played with it but don't really use it. 40, well, you jumped to that one, okay. Yes, a bit. Yes, lots. Oh, I mean, it is not surprising in this context that we have people who are very AI active. But the reality of yes, a bit versus yes, a lot. So, Johnny, can you see this, Johnny? Give him a thumbs up. Okay, fine. In order to be able to sort of say what that looks like, that's kind of interesting. So we'll tailor things a bit from this. So what we decided we needed to do, and I'm going to, from our research, was focus not on the companies that exist, but on the individuals who have not yet formed a company, that could be entrepreneurs or the would-be entrepreneurs. There's a whole load of activity that's going on out there, and all of our research sort of was telling us that where the trends were going in the UK, and this is UK specific, but I think that most of these trends are pretty global, was telling us that entrepreneurs had new expectations. The people who wanted to go and start things were not going to sign up in the same way that they used to for in-person programs. They expected most of the stuff online. They expected it at the time they could do it. And you have to pass through the looking glass on that. Hybrid doesn't make that work, all right? It doesn't tick the boxes. It doesn't mean that if you're based 100 miles away from where the program is that you can participate because you only have to come in some of the time. If you can't come in at all, it doesn't work for you. If you are based in, in a rural part of the country, you probably can't get to the programs that exist in only a small number of major cities. If you want to do the leading fintech program in the US or in the UK, there are a limited number of places that you can really go to that will have that kind of expertise. And it's the same thing for every other kind of specialization. So you have to be able to offer everything to everybody wherever they are. You have to look at what those changing technologies are doing. Somebody was just saying at the end of this, it's absolutely right. We're not just talking about the AI in the context of large language models and generative AI, but now agentics and other technologies that have moved on. We need to be making much more use of those than we did. And what it actually said to us was, if you think very crudely about how you go from having an idea to turning it into a growing company, all of the research that we did that has shown in our context and elsewhere in Europe, that over the last 10 years or so, we've moved away from encouraging people to start and moved much more resource into helping people who have started to grow more. So scale-ups, as it might be, or to other kind of growth activity. And we'd taken the ball off the eye off the ball of actually helping people to start. That was the gap. That was the gap that we tried to approach for this. But there's a problem with people who are trying to start a business. They don't have much in the way of resources. And what resources they have, they're not very confident to use. Because what if my idea is silly? What if my idea isn't really going to go anywhere? And that turns out to be the kind of question that people like this, the kind of personas that we were working with, were actually finding were the real barriers to them starting. Wasn't talking about finance, right? You're way away from worrying about whether or not you can find the right amount of money. What you're actually thinking about are things like, can I share this idea with people without looking stupid? Like the number of people who are just basically resistant to sharing their idea. They think they've got something that might work, but they're not going to take it that seriously. They occasionally mention it when they're chatting to their friends, but they're not really seriously engaging with it because they don't want to look like an idiot. They don't know how to deliver a business part of this. They might know how to write software. They might know how to set up, how to make beer, right? But they don't know how to build the business of making beer or the business of setting up a software business. And they don't even know where to start. And it's an intimidating barrier. It's a psychological barrier to not be able to cut into that knot. They want to be able to solve problems as they encounter them, not do a program that says, here is a model on how to build a business, and 3 years from now, or even 3 months from now, you're going to start putting those steps into action. They're like, I've actually done that bit. The thing I need to know today is, how do I find a team member? How do I build a brand? How do I do something else? And they want it here and now. They don't have a view of this, which means that you want a pre-planned education system months in advance. They look at it and say, look, this is just depressing, right? Every time I start something new, there's a blank sheet of paper. Marketing plan, blank sheet of paper. Image, blank sheet of paper. Finance plan, blank sheet of paper. Product description, blank sheet of paper. And it's like, it seems relentless. So how do we cut that down in a sort of an 80-20 way to make those things work? And the final one, slightly hidden behind Johnny's face, is the fact that this feels so lonely, people don't necessarily start. I don't have anybody to work with on this. I can't afford to pay people. I don't have a team, particularly actually for anybody who's trying to start a business, outside of an education environment where other people do stuff for free. If you're 50, you want to go back. Maybe you stayed at home, taking care of the kids. They've left. They've gone off to university. You're not surrounded by people who want to do other things with you for free. What does that look like? So we worked with a company called Deep Flow, run by Johnny over there. And they developed a tool which has been well over a year in the making, millions spent on research and development, huge numbers of PhDs from some of the world's leading universities, former staffers from Meta and Google, in order to build a tool that was helping to bring together human beings and AI to do not one or the other, not it's human or it's AI, but to do a better job of how AI can support people to do their jobs better. And to build the future of teams, right? What teams look like. But this is an expensive product. This is a product that was built for existing businesses. It was built in order that you could take people who actually had the ability to pay and give them something they needed. And we said, well, hold on a minute. This would be a great tool to put into the hands of people who don't have that resource yet, to help get them going. And so we've worked with them in order to create a version of this, which, if you do have a tablet, you can. We have now launched as a public beta. I stress this because, it's a public beta, so please be kind. There will be bits of it that go wrong. It's also kind of UK focused in some of its responses and in some of the prompts we've got there. But the principles behind it are exactly the same everywhere. and it's designed in order to be something that's a resource. Now, we're having trouble finding the right language to describe this. It's partly a business coach, it's partly a mentor, it's partly a number of other things, it's partly a sort of an as-needs tutor, but I'm going to give you a sense of what it looks like. So if you follow that link, and as I say, this is a thing that's got a graphical interface, so phones aren't the best way of getting to it. But you'll have what is a sort of standard login and sign-up page. Feel free to log in with Google if you want. If you're following along with it, you can hit the button that says sign up there and have a go. I can. By the magic of the clicker. There you go. There is a tiny URL if anybody's got a laptop and wants to do it that way. Just tinyurl.com/navigator-public-beta. You'll see that when you go through it, it's sufficiently beta. It's actually like the front pages on a Squarespace site and things like that. It's deliberately underlining the beta nature of it, but that's the outline. So you'd register as you'd expect to. You then start to have a chat experience. And you have a chat experience that basically says, tell me about your business, right? Tell me about who you are and what it is you want to do. And it puts it into the context not only of your industry and what it is that you might want to do as an activity, but who you are, what your experience is. Have you had any prior entrepreneurial experience? What is it that you've done with that? And then it starts to ask you, and what's the problem that's worrying you right now, right? Is it how do you build I'm having now a complete lack of creativity. I'm just going to use the same example I did a minute ago. I need a brand plan, right? I need a start on, or I'm setting up a retail chain. What does the site look like? Where should I locate my first type of outlet? So you have a chat with it. You'll go through a fairly small number of questions, 5-6 questions. The interesting thing about that is this is sort of analogous to the kind of interview you might do if you were running an accelerator program, but we want to move to the fastest possible point where you can start making a decision. And when you finished it, and it says thank you very much, and we're going to start working on this, it takes you to a dashboard and helps generate the first map. Now this is a simple one. But what it is a graphical display of trying to crack those problems. So in this one, this was coming up with a communications plan and brand development for a thing called the Startup Club brand. It was actually based on opening a drinking bar, because that's a particular area of expertise. But it was the idea of doing the market research, helping create a brand identity. Now, what we're trying to do is cross off all of those things that were problems that we'd noted one by one. One of them was, where do we start? So here is where we start, right? Here is a plan. And that's a simple one used for this kind of explanation. But each of those can contain a series of sort of nested and broken down tasks. So if conducting market research doesn't mean anything to you, you can break it down and go, okay, what does that mean? What are the steps involved in doing that? And for each step, you can have a series of information. Part project management, part chat-based guide, and you basically say, how do I do this thing? I haven't done this before. So you're getting at-the-minute advice based on the task that you've got in hand and in front of you. But it's also putting it into the context of the whole thing that you're trying to achieve. And then you can start to generate some of those things. So you start chatting away to it, and you say, this is, okay, I've never done this before, what does it look like? And it'll give you the information, it'll break it down. It's an online, immediate at hand, one-to-one tutor giving you the personalized information based on everything you've told it before about you. Not just your idea, but what your background is, what it is that you might know, what it is that you don't. And it has contextual awareness of that's getting deeper all the time. And as you go through it, it'll give you some expectation. But it's not like ChatGPT. This isn't another window that's floating off somewhere on your desktop in order that you might have that flying around. It's built in. So when you start to say to it, okay, that sounds great. Now I understand what this means as a market research exercise. Let's go and do it. And so you can access one of the agents that's built in. There are 6 agents on here. Or if you do have other members of your team, you can also say, well, I want to allocate that to a human. I want to say, actually, Steve, can you have a go at doing, we don't actually have one on here for franchising, Steve, sorry about that. If you'd like to be the model for the franchising agent, we'll come up with that later. But you can start to say, this is the market research we need to do. This is where we go. And it will start to generate for you some sense of what that might look like. Not hugely helpful on that screen, but basically it's saying straight off, this is the plan. So we've cut that other problem out of always having a blank page. because you go very quickly from the context of saying, this is all the other work we've done, this is where it's going. And similarly, if you've got other people in your team, they can have similar conversations about the tasks that they're working on, and the system knows what everybody's doing. It's not like having ChatGPT in Holly's window and ChatGPT and Jeff's as two different conversations. It knows what the GEC setup will be and is therefore borrowing information between the two at the right levels, which means you get a totally different element here. Is Ted still here? Has he disappeared? Okay, so Ted's comment earlier that you have to worry about hallucination. Yeah, you do have to worry about hallucination unless you've actually built in some things that try and really minimize that down, to at least make it as reliable as anything that a human would be searching for on the internet generally. So there's various ways in which you can pass that information backwards and forwards in order to make that work, and that's what we've got here. We've also built in templates. So if you've got things like, actually, I don't know what I'm doing with my business, I want to help develop a compelling value proposition or discover early customers, or if you guys have a program with your own flow in it, with your own series of steps about what makes, Amy's program brilliant or what makes somebody else's program brilliant, you'll be able to build a flow that looks like one of those maps in order to say, this is how we do things at MIT, Duke, Georgetown, wherever else it goes. And each of those then becomes its own tutorial. This is what we mean when we're doing this. Do you understand what this is? Would you like to do more on that? If it makes sense, great, have a go. If it doesn't, you get more information as you feed along. So one by one, we've ticked off all of those things that people say are the barriers between thinking about starting a business and moving into action. And that's the critical bit that we're on. And as we've taken it out to various people in the wider world, they've basically come back to say it's a great idea. Yes, James.
Can you go back to the agent page?
That's all right. I think Johnny's going to get worried at the moment because this still has coding agent down here, and he keeps threatening to take it away. But at the moment, that's a different one. The market's running away with that bit. And so you've got a combination of things that you would think of as project management, as online tutor, as educational resource, as functional plan manager, and putting it into the hands of people who have no kind of assistance for that. And whether or not we've taken it out to people who run incubators and accelerators or entrepreneurs, there's people basically saying, yeah, we can see where this works and how this fits in. And critically, it's the same thing you get with AI in general. It's about the speed. It's about the number of iterations and additional steps that you can get in. You can test new business ideas. One guy we worked with, he's an business angel now. He's based in the UK. He's in his 60s. He spent 30 years in Silicon Valley. And he said, this is amazing. I had an idea I wanted to try out. I thought I was going to have to put $150,000 into a new company, hire a small team, let them run it for a couple of months, see where it went. Actually, I'm just going to do this by Tuesday. Right? It was the ability to iterate and circle through those things very quickly that became the powerful bit. For the people who are running incubators, running accelerators, running university programs, this gives you the ability to work with 2, 3, 5, 10 times as many participants with the same resource base as you did before. So, how might this help you? Back to this is the last bit of questioning. Whatever it is you do, half of you are ecosystem builders, about another half were educators. What stops you from helping more entrepreneurs and startups with your programs? This is a word cloud, so put anything you like in here. Like, what stops you? Is it the money? Is it time? Is it resources? Is it tech? Is it a lack of ideas? Is it a lack of participants and applicants for your programs? What's the thing that stops you from really being able to make your program work as effectively as you can? I'm going to wait till this gets to like 7, and we'll start to see things appear. It's hovering around dangerously. There we go. So time, right? Language barrier. Oh, that was unexpected, but very good. Language barrier is a brilliant one, right? So this is a platform that can run in any language, right? It doesn't even take any coding. It's just basically about flipping it on. Time is the critical element. All of this is about how it speeds things up and the ability of entrepreneurs to iterate faster, but for people who are running programs to be able to manage people more quickly and more effectively as well to their flow, to their idea. Time, staff, effort, and knowledge. Yeah. Technical resources. Yes. So, yeah, key thing about this. Did I mention this is free? So I'm a charity. The lovely thing about being a charity is you go and ask some people who have money for money, and then you can go and give away things to people who don't have money. And that's what we're trying to do right now. So we want to make this free and available to every entrepreneur who needs it in the UK, which is basically everyone. And if you'd like to make it available in a country that isn't the UK, that's why Johnny is here. So we've built this, but he'd love to hear from you as well. Yeah. Yes. So the financial model is if we can land this and make it work, right? Then you build up an audience. Well, there's multiple bits, but it's a standard sort of sponsorship stroke marketing model. You have a community of people. The idea that the equivalent of I don't know a Citizen Bank or whatever it might be wants this to be the tool and the brand that's associated with them. That's where we're trying to land it. It's one of the reasons why the homepage is quite as bad as it is the expectation that a sponsor will want to put their name on it. Yes. Hello. Confidentiality. So I'm going to keep looking at Johnny on this because Johnny, if you want to chime in on any of these things, feel free to. But the starting point is nothing about participating in this changes confidentiality for you. So we don't look at the ideas. The system isn't looking at your ideas yourself. We'll look at metrics to see, are you logging in? Are you engaged? In order that we can say things to you like, hey, you haven't logged in for a while. Are you okay? Have you given up with the idea? Do you need some encouragement? So there's an element of this that is partly that sort of motivating business coach and mentor type role as well. But there isn't anything here that makes this any more complicated than, say, writing a business plan in Google Docs, knowing that Google can read it. I would argue at this point that there is probably nobody who is writing anything on a laptop that a system somewhere couldn't read if they thought it was worthwhile. The truth is that they don't because it isn't worthwhile. You can't pick apart. If you've got a business that is simply what's written on a piece of paper and it doesn't rely on your know-how, your expertise, your network, you're probably going to struggle for 101 other reasons anyway. So this isn't really about us taking your ideas or Johnny taking these ideas. Johnny's got enough problems executing on this idea rather than taking anybody else's. It's a typical startup CEO scenario. So there isn't anything that's going to fundamentally change anything by using this compared to another model. But what it is doing is evolving that combination of using the sort of the chat agents and the LLMs and having multiple chat windows with everybody in the organization doing things differently. It centralizes that in a way which means that the system has greater knowledge about what's happening across the organization and the ability to then execute on that. Johnny, if you want to say anything, just wave at any point, right? Because I can't hear you. We'll have to get them to repeat it. But you're looking at other things. The bandwidth up here is a critical one. The ability for you to say, hey, thanks very much for applying to my program, but actually you're not quite right, you're not quite ready. Maybe you want to come back in 6 months. Meanwhile, you can use this tool for free to get you to the point that will help you to get ready for when we're here. Just finally, for the reason for that, the reason for me drawing attention to that and asking you those questions is when we started looking at what it would cost for us to actually do the direct marketing to take Navigator out to everybody who could be an entrepreneur in the UK. It's not just the cost of the Google AdWords, but there are hundreds of organizations in the UK doing a great job of actually supporting people already. So we're not trying to take them out of the loop and form a different relationship. So in order to reach the entrepreneurs that are there, we're working with partners who are all the organizations that are already there, who get to use this for free with their cohorts, whether or not that's a university or whether or not that's a small-scale incubator, a local public program that is sponsored by their local council or what have you, in order to basically say, here's an additional set of resources you can use. And we expect that there'll be a kind of 90-10% split in where our users come from on the basis of that. We won't talk about that. That's numbers. And over the course of the last year, it's taken quite a long time to get here with a number of test versions. We tried doing some early e-learning content, which was actually pretty awesome, but not quite the right way to go. We built some of these, and the final bit. Who here is an active researcher? Okay. So there's a number in the room. This is the bit where it gets, where certain researchers get excited. We're working with UCL, University of Exeter, University of Edinburgh, and others to basically plot out a 12-month randomized controlled trial on the comparison between human mentors, AI mentors, and human plus AI mentors, and to see the evaluation. If you look at any of the academic research right now on how good AI is in comparison to the rest of these things, you would be absolutely astonished, because the stuff that's coming out now was based on using AI in about 2023, right? Because of the 18 months or so of academic publishing. There's a couple of great pieces. There are people who used some of the AI tools to generate new business ideas. They then compared those to ideas on the same scenarios produced by students, produced by academics, and produced by real entrepreneurs, submitted them for evaluation, professional and through business plan competitions. And the short version of this is the AI won. That was based on the 2023 models. The 2025 models, it's just not comparable. If you use them correctly and you use them well, you'll already find that the speed and the frequency with which you can get through things is enormously ahead. If you liked any of this, or if you have any opinions, I'd be very grateful if you could just basically scan that one and tell me what they are. But that was really what we wanted to lay out for this. And hopefully somebody, did anybody actually have a laptop out and try and make it work while they were here? Yes, fantastic, okay, good. Did it at least load? Yes, Johnny, it loaded. There you go. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. That's pretty much what we wanted to cover and try and demonstrate to you as a different way of approaching what we're doing. It's not based just on telling people to use ChatGPT, but building a platform with entrepreneurs first in mind. And be delighted to take any questions if people have got them. Thank you. There we go. Anybody?
Do we have any questions?
Just while you're doing that, hold on. Make sure you get Johnny's face in the
We have a question over here.
Hello. Yes.
Languages fluently.
Yep.
And one of the biggest problems that we're having is capital and connecting students with other students, etc. So would we be able to make a deal or a partnership to make use of your platform, or at least test it?
I'm going to hand this one over to Johnny if we can hear him, but I think he's probably just basically going to say he'd be delighted to work with you if we can find some way of doing it. Johnny, can you hear it? Could you hear that bit? We can't hear you back. Guys at the back, can you hear Johnny? Okay.
Should I repeat the question?
Okay, that didn't come through on the sound, but basically I'll answer for him. Essentially, yes, we can handle languages and multiple languages at the same time. Yes, once we've sort of piloted this with them, these guys would be delighted to have a conversation, and I can connect you afterwards.
Good, great.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Thank you very much in that case for your time. Really appreciate it, and love to know what you think in future.
Okay, Tim, you don't get to go far because you are on our next panel. But yeah, Tim and I were nervous about that because, you know, demoing live is hard. But I think that went really well, Tim. So thank you very much for doing that. So our next panel is, and our final panel before lunch, the regulatory landscape of AI in education. And of course, we have Tim Barnes, who's joining us from the Center for Entrepreneurs, so you get to hear from him some more. Hope you're not tired of that. We have Marissa Kaloga from the University of Auckland in New Zealand. So Marissa. And then we have Ayman El Tarabishi from the International Council on Small Business. So if you join us on stage. And yes, I will do a fifth chair. So if you stick around till the end, we'll do a fifth chair and people can come up, just like Ted did. Okay, Tim, we've already kind of heard your intro and bio, so I'm going to let you have a break on your voice here. But we'll start just as we started our last panel. I would like each of you to tell us a little bit of the work that you do, generally, what you're passionate about, what you're focused on, but then also the AI focus and your experience there. So I will start. I'm going to skip over Tim, like I said, and go to Marissa.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Marissa Kaloga. I'm the Heinz Lecturer of Entrepreneurship at the University of Auckland Business School. So like many entrepreneurship scholars, I come from a non-entrepreneurship background. So my background is more in social and behavioral sciences, with a background in macro social work and global health. So my research mainly looks at inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems, but really coming from a community development perspective, and both a critical and creative approach to what that might look like in the future. So you do very applied research, working directly with marginalized communities, both in practice and in research, to co-create what the next generation of entrepreneurs might look like, but also a more pluriversal or kind of expansive version of what an entrepreneurial ecosystem might be and might do. So a little bit similar to thinking about what President Spinelli is talking about with the entrepreneurial leadership and the emancipatory and empowering potential of entrepreneurship.
Well, thank you. We'll definitely dig into that a little bit more. And so, Ayman, we'll go to you.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. Ayman Tarabishi. I play multiple hats. First, I'm the president and CEO of a nonprofit organization founded in 1955 called the International Council for Small Business, ICSB. We hold some academic journals, but most recently we created with the United Nations the Micro, Small, Medium Enterprise Day. So like March 8th, there's Women's Day. Now on June 27th, there's Micro, Small Business Day at the United Nations. And we celebrate this globally here, so it's coming up on June 27th. So that's one part as President and CEO. The other part is I am professor at George Washington University in the School of Business, and I teach innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship and small business. So AI is up my alley, in which I look at it and play with it all the time, see how we can use it as well. So excited to be in both worlds, both the global world and teaching young freshmen and sophomores as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think you'll add interesting perspective being, on campus, but also running this, your organization outside. Tim, is there a finer point you want to put on your experience or bio before we move on? No, we're good. We don't need to know more about Tim. So my first question is, if this panel was only 3 minutes long, and I assure you it's not just 3 minutes long, but if you only had 1 minute to say something really important about AI in education, what would you say? And I am going to start with Tim on that.
Education, particularly higher education as we know it, won't exist in 2026.
Okay, that was about 10 seconds. Marissa.
I'll take maybe a little bit more than 10 seconds. I think for me the most important thing, there's a book written by Neil Postman in the 1980s called Amusing Ourselves to Death. Really looking at how technology advances, but human beings actually stay the same. So who we are and how we operate fundamentally is very similar to a long time ago. So when we conceptualize what AI is and how we use it and how we imagine a regulatory framework for it as this is currently emerging, I want us to think of it rather than just as a tool, more as a socio-technical system, right? Where we think about, yes, the technology, but also how is it co-evolving with the social sphere and how is power being embedded into these systems so that we can be a lot more agentic ourselves in deciding how we want to engage with this technology and how it will co-evolve along with our cultures and societies.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I mean, I know I spend a lot of time thinking about how I want to engage. What are the things I'm willing to give to AI? What are the things that I want to still exercise my brain about? So I think that's a point we can dive into a little bit more. Your 1 minute, Ayman.
I think there's going to be a reckoning with AI. I think this is all nice and happy and positive and fluffy, but there's a dark side to AI, and there's going to be a huge reckoning, and there's a storm coming. And we need to stop smiling and enjoying AI and start getting ready for the storm that's coming, both in terms of student pedagogy, in terms of how we educate, in terms of how we relate to the young people, and how we use it in our everyday lives. So I'm worried about the storm that's coming, and we see signs of it now, but are we ready is the question, and are we getting ready for that storm?
So just to take the other 50 seconds from my first answer.
Please.
It wasn't an entirely, it wasn't meant to be a flippant comment, maybe slightly, but more provocative. I do think there's a storm coming. But the problem that exists from my perspective, and education in that sense is an example, and hence saying education as we see it is really time limited, is that it is coming, right? It's not optional. That's the first thing. But the second thing is that the nature of the public debate, by and large, around AI, in my experience of what I see in the UK, Europe, and globally, is incredibly poor. Right, the everyday conversation about this is incredibly poor. You have tech utopians on one side about how it's all going to be better, and you have dystopian commentators on the other side about how we're all going to end up living in a world that looks like the disaster scene in Terminator. And the reality will be somewhere in between. How much it tends towards one to another is up to us right now in terms of making choices. But if we basically stand around thinking it's not going to happen, then it will be worse. And the anecdote I would share of this in a GCEC context, sorry, Holly, is when we had the 23 conference, there were loads of people talking about AI, but mostly in the way it was discussed in the first panel. It was about, as Jeff said, in other parts of his institution, not as forward-looking as his own views. It's like it was, how do we stop plagiarism? It's how do we stop this? What were we doing about the activities? By last year when we met at Babson in November, there was a totally different approach, which is we've introduced AI into how everybody completes their assignments. And I was sitting there going, have anybody here actually thought what AI is going to do to your job? Not to how universities are organized. Like, why do you have a broadcast one-to-many model with structured programs that take years and cost tens of thousands of dollars when I can go to ChatGPT right now and get immediate advice, knowledge, and education essentially for free? Like, what's the business model? And every industry has to think about what that business model now looks like, because it doesn't look like it did 18 months ago, and it won't look like this in 18 months' time. And if you're still doing this in 18 months' time, you may not be dead yet, but the time will be coming for you.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to something President Spinelli said. Leslie said it in her remarks in the first panel, but there is just always going to be that human element, I think, Tim. And I think it's coming for parts of our jobs, but we can't ignore the human element. But I think we're all spending a lot of time, at least most of us in this room, preparing ourselves. Like Ayman said, we're preparing for what's coming ahead. Mark Cuban alluded to it yesterday in his talk, that we needed to be prepared, and we should be using this if we're not already.
So if anybody here, does anybody here follow PitchBook data?
Yes.
Follow PitchBook?
Yeah.
Okay. So the end of Q1 PitchBook for this calendar year, data compared to 9 months ago. And 9 months is an odd period, right? It's not 6 months or 12 months, but 9 months, because that's roughly, that is an indication of how fast things are going. The PitchBook data shows that if you're going for Series B funding as of the end of March of this year compared to the middle of summer last year, you're probably raising a bit more money, but not a huge amount more. But your revenues will be 25 to 30% higher, and your staff will be 25% lower. So you've basically made a 50% improvement gain in 9 months. That's the speed. And the people who are going are the coders who thought that they were going to own this a year ago. So the speed of this is insane. Dean Spinelli quoted something at Babson. I'm going to get the numbers wrong, sir, so please, but I think the general idea was there. You talked about a survey that you'd conducted of students and educators from across the US in entrepreneurship, and there were something like 5,000 responses or something like that. And 88% of students, I think was the number, said that they were using AI to do their assignments. All that tells me is 12% of students lie, right? But the really worrying bit was less than 30% of educators were using it regularly. So how are you educating and leading if you're behind the guys you're supposed to be instructing and telling things to? That's where the nature of disruption comes from.
So let's stay on speed. So AI is moving faster than most of us can keep up, and certainly it's moving faster than regulatory frameworks can keep up with. So how do we find that balance between how quickly this innovation is happening and ensuring responsible use? Would anyone like to comment on that?
If you look at the signs right here, New York Times, I think 10 days ago, ran on the front page that a student sued a university I don't need to name the universities, sue the university, headline news in New York, if you can go, saying, I want my money back. I'm going to class, and everything that I'm being taught is being generated by ChatGPT. The professor is giving the assignments out using ChatGPT. The homework is using ChatGPT. The lectures are using ChatGPT. I want my money back. And New York Times took it and ran with it. And now it's at the university, at the Board of Trustees, discussing what do we do with faculty that are using this to educate their students? And do the students have rights of saying, I'm here not to be educated by AI or a professor using AI, I'm here for the human education. This is an ethical question. This is kind of going to the core of what universities are supposed to do and what's their motivation and mission is. And the other term is we know students are using ChatGPT in the classroom. Of course they're using it, okay? So here's the balance. Where do we draw the line? You know, I believe the storm is coming. There will be class action lawsuits from students to universities saying, I'm not getting the education I'm being paid for. I'm paying for. This is all generated. Where's the Socratic method of teaching? There's a balance that needs to come. And this is a discussion that we need to start having in the universities, with the leadership, with the faculty, but also as a community of educators.
But the counterpoint of that is, anybody here ever take a math class? Well, we say maths, but I'm translating. Right. And you were told, did your teachers ever use a calculator? Because they didn't do it in their head. Right? This isn't a meaningful. This is a tool that everybody has access to, and there is a real difference between this as a tool compared to almost anything else that we've seen in the last couple of, basically since the Industrial Revolution. If you wanted to massively increase productivity as a small business owner or in any organization, you needed to spend money on stuff, right? You might spend it on new machinery, you might spend it on training a workforce in the hope of a payoff in the future. This stuff is so cheap, it's basically a disposable cost. And you can see, already in sort of the number of people who are no longer needed in organizations. There's never been a thing that doesn't require a sort of upfront cost that delivers these activities. And it's like saying calculators for maths teachers or dictionaries for people doing modern languages. It's simply a tool that everybody has access to, so why would you take it out of the chain? I think the more interesting one is what happens when somebody says, I've got a business idea, and you've been chatting about it, and the business idea fails. And there have been people saying, well, no, ChatGPT told me this. It must have been true, right? It must have been guaranteed to work. The interesting question is, why is that more true than the fact that anybody here who is an educator has ever taken a student through an idea and got it wrong, and they are not subject to liability? If you apply the same rules that we apply to humans to the machine, and to the agents, which are easier to think of it that way, then most of these things can reconcile quite quickly.
So I'm going to push back on this a little bit here. We're not in the business of productivity. We're in the business of taking young girls and boys in the education and turning them into young men and women. That means we are teaching them to think and grow and learn and be more confident in themselves than sitting using AI as a tool and telling them, this is what I'll give you, go take it and go present it because I've done the work for you. We are in a sacred domain. We are dealing with human lives. We're dealing with young girls and boys' minds and personalities to grow. We need to be careful on teaching them to be more productive or versus teaching them to think. That's where AI, I have a personal conflict with them. And I know it's a debatable thing here, but I have 15-year-old boys, and I see them using AI, and I sit and have conversations with them, and I can see two split personalities. My little boy at 15 years old talking to me alone versus my little boy using ChatGPT to work on his science assignment. Two different personalities.
Well, Marissa, I know you're inside the class. I know you're doing research at Auckland, but you're also teaching. So how does this resonate with what you're seeing with your students?
I think, well, there's a couple of things that I kind of want to bring up.
Yeah.
The first one is that, similar to you, I have 3 teenage boys. 2 of them refuse to use AI. So I don't think that the people are lying. I think there is a specific part of Gen Z in particular that has pushed back very intentionally against a lot of the technology that they feel has been forced on them. So the people that are using the brick phones or flip phones, people that are refusing to use AI, and it's a very intentional thing. I know for my children it's around them wanting to learn how to think and feeling that they're kind of too young to be leaning on that as a crutch in high school. The second thing I want to push back on is the idea of AI, in particular agentic AI, being cheap or not having a lot of cost. I think in particular from the perspective of New Zealand, the cost may not be necessarily financial, the cost may be in climate. Right, so when we think about how cheap something is, we have to think about, well, what resources are we actually talking about? So yes, we may have the ability to access a lot of things and do a lot of things and be more productive, but we really have to offset that with the understanding that we don't yet have a solution to the enormous cost to the environment that the huge uptake of AI is having. So in my classroom, I use AI. I enjoy it. I think there is a lot of positive potential. As an educator, I kind of take it as a provocation to design assessments and engagements that are so fun and so interesting that AI is not seen as the immediate answer. So it's seen as a tool to help them explore, but that the students really want to be doing the work and want to be challenging themselves. And so I think we do sometimes, as educators, lean back on the crutch of some of the things that can be very easily replaced by AI. But that, to me, is an opportunity for us to step up and think about our role a bit differently. I think, to your point, there's a lot of students that just don't want to engage in it. They want the Socratic, they want the discussion, but at the same time, as universities facing a lot of budgetary constraints, we're being pressured to have larger and larger classrooms where the type of experiential and Socratic methods become more and more difficult to use. Certainly in a classroom of 500, it's very difficult to do those types of things. And so it's a push and a pull when we have the opportunities to engage very deeply with students so that they want to do the hard work, they want to do the challenge, and they see AI as a tool, not as an escape hatch from their work.
Yeah, I think we've heard that a lot this week, is that AI is the tool. It's not always the answer. And we heard, I don't know if anyone came on Tuesday morning, I think, we had a panel in the main stage of teenagers who had done some research in AI. And there were certainly those who were excited about it, using it for some of the reasons that you all have pointed out today to assist them. And then there were some concerns, mostly around jobs. And these are 15, 16-year-old young people who are doing this work. So it's certainly on the minds of your teenagers, and we've even heard it here. But Marissa, let's stay with you, because as I understand it, in New Zealand, there's some challenges in adopting AI due to the indigenous data sovereignty. So it's led to, I think you said, some low trust and maybe some slow adoption or slow uptake of AI. So how's your university handling this delicate shift, and is there anything we can learn from you?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So New Zealand is a bicultural country founded on a treaty between the Queen and the Maori chiefs. And so we are a bicultural country in all ways, including in knowledge generation, including in kind of internal logics of our economic system. But I think the way that it's best to understand it is actually to compare a couple of pieces of legislation. And if you'll stay with me, this is a regulatory framework type of a thing, so this is the space, I guess, to talk about it. Yeah. So you may be very familiar with Citizens United, the decision in the US to provide personhood to a corporation. So in New Zealand, a little bit later, but starting in 2014, there was a series of legislations that provided personhood as well, but not to corporations, but first to Te Urewa, the forest, second to the Whanganui River, and most recently, just this year, to Mount Maunganui, so Maunganui Maunga. And so we see that there is a difference here in the way, fundamentally, that people are looking at what non-human deserves personhood. On the one hand, we have corporations deserving personhood, and on the other hand, we have natural environments deserving personhood. And a lot of that is based on the Maori concept of kaitiakitanga and manakitanga, which is going to be stewardship and care. So rather than ownership and the ability to force will through a non-human entity, it is the idea that the environment itself is for legal purposes a person. right? And so when we think about how we're looking at AI, which itself may be challenged to deserve legal personhood in the future, what is that going to look like, right? So when we think about indigenous data sovereignty, one of the questions is who owns this, right? Because Maori Tonga, or the Maori kind of treasures and knowledge are collectively held not by a single person. So who owns that data? Who is the caretaker and the steward for that data? And who is deciding how it's going to be used? When we think about what is feeding into AI and what are we drawing from when we're putting in our prompts, doesn't represent all human knowledge. It represents a very specific type of human knowledge, right? It is currently very incomplete. It draws, as not to get too kind of in the weeds, but it draws from like this Cartesian notion of a duality of body and mind, right? And so it is a disembodied knowledge. So when we think about indigenous data, indigenous perspectives see knowledge as embodied, as relational, as embedded, as historical, as having a whakapapa, having a history. And so those are some of the reasons why the conversations around AI in New Zealand are a little bit different. And to some degree why, as a whole, we see that Kiwis are some of the most kind of distrusting of the AI hype. Certainly lots of people interested, lots of people wanting to explore it, but having a very, I think, nuanced conversation, in particular at the university level, around how are we going to implement this, and at the same time honor our treaty obligations to be able to hold both kind of worldviews at the same time around how we use AI, what is the use of data, and how do we be the guardians of what that will be for future generations, not just who we are right now.
That's very complex. It sounds like your university is going to have a hand in maybe shaping what New Zealand does in that area. So really important work. So Iman, you also have a role that's got a global worldview at ICSB. So what are you seeing in different parts?
So ICSB we work a lot with the United Nations and a lot of works because we created a small business day. So we worked with them and engaged with them with the UNESCO. And they put out a report 2 years ago about the ethical use of AI. And if you just Google it, it's available, it's free to download. And they put some guidelines and parameters on how countries, how regions can use AI in an ethical manner. And I was in a discussion with one of them, and one of the discussions that came up, and it's a true story, is you all familiar with Steve Wozniak, right, the founder of Apple. A couple of years ago, his wife, right, applied for credit using Apple to buy some computers, right? Now, Steve Wozniak and his wife have the same joint bank account. They have everything equal the same. Nothing's changed between them. They're all there. But yet she got less credit than Steve Wozniak. Much less credit. So she didn't understand why. So it got into the news, and then they started investigating it. And in the coding of the application itself there was what they proceeded as bias, gender bias. For some reason, you have joint bank accounts, you're the co-founder of Apple, and yet your wife gets less credit than the founder. Right? So they went back and tried to investigate. They said, we're going to look into it and stuff. And at the end, they said, well, we're not really sure what happened to the algorithm. It was somebody who wrote the algorithm, right? And therefore said, well, what do we do now? And Steve Wozniak came out saying, this is what's happening today. It's big banking, it's big data, there's no human intervention, right? And what the UNESCO report and what it's saying here is saying we need to be conscious of this, that whatever we're producing, there needs to be some way, some fashion, some form where we can have some guidelines saying, is this algorithm gender neutral, you know? Or if we're going to use AI, and it's not just coming to high schools, but what about middle schools? Or it's coming. So why not create a sandbox in which we can all agree that these are the guidelines for some of the tools that our young children will use? So at George Washington University or other organizations, we're discussing now using a version of ChatGPT that's university focused, in which we can distill some of these potential or not potential algorithms. There's a global movement, there's a global dialogue. But I caution you between having guidelines and having policies. There's a difference between guidelines and policies. Policies, you are limiting innovation. because now you're telling people what to do and not to do. Guidelines is things that we should be thinking about trying to apply. I am all for the wild, wild west of ChatGPT and AI and generative. I'm all for that. But I'm also focused on the human-centered element of this. So we need to draw a balance between them. So I'm not sure who's participating in it. A lot of countries are joining in the force for it. I recommend you looking at it and discussing it with your policymakers, but it was a collaborative effort and a lot of debate type of thing. I don't know if 2 months ago you saw the AI convention in Paris, in which India, Russia, and France signed an agreement, but the US came and said, not so fast. We want to be independent. We want to do our own thing. I see both sides. I think both sides are right. You know, sometimes you need to continue to innovate, to be creative, and go alone type of thing. You know, the pioneers, I call it, and I'm up for that.
Thank you, Ayman. So Tim, do you want to tell us about the regulatory landscape in the UK? What can you share about what's working, what's not working from your view?
So I wouldn't just necessarily put it in the context of the UK. Okay. There's plenty of things, and there are really legitimate concerns here. But I do think that by and large, the models that we've got, I don't mean that technical models, I mean the structures we've got, can cope with most of those. So if you, I think there's a really legitimate question around data sovereignty in all of its forms, at a community level, not just at a nation level, and who actually has the ability to access that and draw and infer things from that. Those are a series of questions that we haven't answered. But actually, we have been here before, right? There's a few people here with even less hair than me, and a couple of people on a sort of similar level, right? And you might remember when we were sort of first experiencing the implementation of the internet and the World Wide Web, the concerns as to, well, what happens when we've got a globally and economically dominant player in this, and you see the Americanization of the language and the culture. What if we want our own element of the web, our own web pages? Well, the world adapted to that, and both factors are at play. There is an Americanization of language and of culture there. I come from an organization that most Americans can't spell because they put the E and the R the wrong way round, right? So there's a certain amount of elements of that will translate, but the base idea of this is that if you've got an ever-increasing pool, and I agree completely with Marissa's point a second ago, that it is a subset of human knowledge, but it is an increasing subset of human knowledge. And the regulatory elements of this, and you mentioned, Holly, earlier, the problem with speed of the regulatory framework, is that they're not necessarily envisaging where the puck is going, right? They're not even catching up with where the puck is. Two examples, two thoughts very quickly. First one, AI is never going to be as rubbish, as costly, as energy intensive as it is today, right, for each instruction. This is the worst it will ever be. And if today we stop developing it, huge parts of what we do would be ripped up in years. We have to have some very serious debates, and it's much more than about what the regulations need to be. It's not what are the regulations to the problem, but it's what is it we want them to be that's the conversations we're not having. We're going to have a great world in 30, 40 years where this, much like the internet, much like elements of the agrarian revolution, the industrial revolution, have transformed things for the majority for the better. But we're going to have to cope with 20, 30 years of displacement where people who've been doing things are not going to be able to do stuff anymore because they've been taken out of it. So Uber drivers, right? Basically, does anybody here come from a city where you can get in an Uber robot taxi? Okay, which city's that, sir? Los Angeles, okay. So the weird thing about Uber is they've rolled them out in Phoenix and Austin, I can't remember how many other cities. They're completely regulated, completely legit. And yet, you still get human beings driving Ubers in Los Angeles, right? Why? Anybody know why? Why would Uber not just replace the people? A trust and inclusion, partly. But mostly, it's because they don't know what they do when they fire all the Uber drivers at the same time. So Uber will put on huge numbers of robot taxis, not when there is the most demand for Uber. Right, you'd think that you'd put them on when there's the most demand and there's not enough drivers to take on what's happening. They're putting them on in the middle of the night. They're not using them to bring down prices or reduce surge because they want the drivers to have the money on the surge. The question is going to be, in much of the world where you have things like Uber and other services, these are people who are making money when they have very few qualifications and they really just have a clean driving license. And societally, what do we do when those people don't have a job anymore? And they can't pay taxes, and they don't pay for public services. Those are the societal questions we need to have. And the regulatory bit, in terms of how we think about regulation, is not the issue. The issue isn't what are the regulations, and to Ayman's point a second ago, whether or not it's actually holding back innovation or not. The problem is we have already reached a point where we don't know what the regulation and the guidelines should be, and the vanishing point is accelerating away from us.
So this next question, it came up in a really interesting conversation with Marissa, and when I was preparing for this panel, and I hadn't thought about it this way, but Marissa says, with every technological advancement over the centuries, things are lost. You're starting to do work, I think, around this in Auckland, but based on all that we're gaining in this AI revolution, and we are gaining a lot, and some of it's confusing, it's complex, and some of it's positive, but what are some of the things we don't want to lose, and how can leaders ensure those things are not lost in this revolution? Since Marissa, maybe because we started talking about this, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely much more of a philosophical question, but a lot of us in this room are old enough to remember what life was like before the internet, right? And some people are very sentimental about that. So if you think back to your childhood or your adolescence and what that was like for you, there may be something that was lost, right? And I think when we get very, and that's just the techno-optimists, the people that are very pro-innovation as progress, may kind of miss the boat there, right? We are able to create a future that hopefully leads to the human flourishing, right? A collective prosperity. So as we think about what that's going to look like, and to his point, we don't know what it's going to look like, but we do potentially know what we want to see in the world. So rather than chasing AI and thinking of it as it's going to lead us to a better future, it's up to us to decide what we want that future to look like, and then to decide what are we willing to trade for that future, and what are we not willing to trade for it. What do we want to make sure that we don't lose? And I don't think that that's something I can necessarily answer. I think that's a collective conversation that's going to be different in every context. And that conversation, to me, is what needs to drive the regulation, not to try to necessarily harness the beast, but to harness ourselves to each other and say, we're creating something. What is it that collectively we're creating? It's not AI. It's the actual world, right? The AI can scaffold maybe a little bit faster to get to that, but it's really up to us to decide what that is. And for New Zealand, it's going to be very different from the UK. It's going to be very different from where you are. It's going to be very different from the US. For New Zealand, we have right now a very light touch on our regulation using existing policy to be able to kind of needle out what types of, how we're going to understand, things as they come up for AI. We are kind of ascribed to the OECD principles like transparency and inclusivity, but are kind of taking it similarly as it goes. But what is that future that you want to see, and how is AI going to be one of many tools that you're using to be able to push forward into that human flourishing and common prosperity?
Ayman or Tim, do you want to comment on that?
What I'm afraid that we're going to lose because of AI is ingenuity, is trying to make people solve their own problems by themselves. We're going to quickly run and try to go onto that and try to figure out the solution using AI to support us. But there's a skill, there's a learning there where your mind needs to think through the problem yourself, right? And get stuck with it and struggle with it for a while. And we're going to lose that patience, or the young people are going to lose that patience where you say, well, keep working at it. They're not going to be patient enough. They're going to try to pick up their phone or something and say, well, how do I solve that problem? And that's one thing I'm afraid of. The other thing I'm afraid of, and I think it's something that we learn because of civilization and humanity, is what I call frugal innovation. Doing things in a frugal way, and trying to solve the problem in the least amount of resources and stuff. Now, everything has to be organized, thought out, planned, and these two things is what I believe we're in jeopardy of losing with time, because we're going to get too dependent on these tools to get us these things in a different way, and we don't spend the energy to it. We're conserving. And by the way, if you do neuroscience and if you learn about this, the mind is always pushing you to be in the same state. The mind doesn't want you to think. The mind wants you to continue doing your routines, right? And that's why people forget to use languages or learn languages, because you don't use it anymore. You don't use this. So our mind is gonna start training ourselves. Don't worry about it. Just go put it in the system. They'll tell you what to do. That's what I'm afraid of.
So we've had the back and forth on this slightly, but I'm feeling way more optimistic about where some of this is than that. The idea that innately curious beings like humans stop being curious because they've got a new set of tools doesn't strike me as something that any part of history suggests, or any part of evolution suggests is particularly likely. If I'm working on a project at home, the fact that I'm not using AI doesn't mean that when I'm trying to work out how to put up some shelves, that I'm not standing on the shoulders of the giants who came before me, who invented the wheel, who invented the hammers, who invented the processes by which the metals were extracted in order to use those things. It's just another tool in a long run of technological process, progress, and there isn't anything that's necessarily that is innately lost by adding a capability. Anything that is lost is a choice, right? And it may be a viable one, but it's a choice. We've got a way of capturing more of what goes on than has ever happened before. We have the ability to hold on and retain knowledge for longer. You've got a collective series of digital resources that are trapping more of what we know about the world, what has happened in the world, what the cultures are of the world, what the languages are of the world. If you want to have a conversation now with somebody who speaks a language that's been extinct for a couple of thousand years, you can do it, right? There are ChatGPT models, or actually other LLMs are better, but for this. But you have models where you can have a conversation in ancient Egyptian, right? Because it's a thing there. It's actually being used as a way of teaching and holding on to languages of diminishing communities. So it's a choice to lose some of those things. There's no innate reason why you have to. It's just an additional tool in the arsenal. And everything before has suggested, eventually we work out what to do with that and we go on and do something else.
Thank you all. And it is complex, and I'm enjoying this discourse because I think some of that's going on in our heads, right? Some days we wake up and we think one way and some days another, and it's so important to have this platform to do that. So I am going to do a fifth chair because we don't have much time. So if anyone is wanting to take a final question, please come over here. But while you're coming over to the side, I do just want to bring this back to founders. And I think Mark Cuban said something really exciting yesterday. He said now is just the best time to start a business. He had so much passion and excitement. But if we could just, a short thought on, I know there's some concern, there's some complexity, but with the founders you're working with, how are they using AI, I think, for the betterment? So Tim, maybe because you're working with the center.
Betterment is the ability to do more with less, so you can spend those resources doing something else, right, in a good way. So one guy, I'm not actually directly working with him, but I met him last week. He works for a technology company that sells software to people who run advertising and media agencies, right? They just passed $150 million of turnover. He is the only salesperson. Everything else he's built using non-coding environments. He's built agents to do outsourced marketing, inbound marketing, and generating the brand assets that then generate the social media. And that simply means that the company has been able to do more, service its clients better, and other resources can be applied to do something else. And it's those conversations that I think that are really cool or exciting. The bit that it's where it becomes really hard to see how it's going to work is when you have an individual today, you have an individual in a couple of years' time who can do what it currently takes a 1,000-person corporation to do, right? Because you simply don't need back office, staff. You don't need people in finance and marketing because the agents are taking care of that. The original creative spark, absolutely. The idea of creating recipes for and inventing new food dishes before they're actually spun out and turned into recipe books. That absolutely there, but the amplification that you get out of this, and the fact that probably before the end of this decade, you'll have the individual who's created the one-person billion-dollar-a-month company. right? That's where it goes that seems weird.
Marissa or Ayman, any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just want to kind of highlight that the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the University of Auckland, as well as the kind of innovation ecosystem, both at the university and in the city of Auckland, is very focused on how do we enable AI innovation that's responsible and ethical. And so while in general New Zealand is still catching up a little bit, our innovation ecosystem, our entrepreneurial ecosystem is very gung-ho about figuring out how we can use this, again, for the shared prosperity, but also to build really effective and profitable businesses. And so we have, amazing students and faculty and staff at the University of Auckland, such as an organization or a business called Halter, who is using, satellites and AI for ag tech. So we have all of that happening within kind of those confines of how are we doing this ethically, how are we doing this sustainably.
Thank you. Final thought. Are you good?
I'm good. Thank
You're good. Okay. I am going to bring up, come on up here, and that's what I'm going to ask you. You've sat through a whole 2 panels and speakers, so give us your final thought on AI. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. My name is Maddie Heath. I work with Unique Minds AI, so we operate at the intersection of consulting and pharmaceuticals, but I also support Teach United, and it's a pedagogy-based nonprofit that helps teachers in rural and under-resourced communities. And I also graduated from IU in May of 2024, so Gen Z. But I think something that I've realized, even from this panel and your insight, is how much we're encouraged to, learn how to use, for example, ChatGPT. But I would encourage educators and regulators to take it even a step further, past just how do you utilize ChatGPT and build up your AI toolkit, and teach students which models are best used, the difference between generative and agentic AI, and taking it a step further, so that way, to your point about having complex and critical thinking still our unique human value add, we have that skill set, because I think with my generation, that's something that we definitely are worried about, of AI taking our jobs. That's actually why I got into AI in the first place. So taking it a step past just using ChatGPT and throwing it into a model, finding the tool to do so, but genuinely understanding which tools and projects could benefit from AI and which are better suited for us as humans.
Thank you. So it was Teachers United?
Teach United.
Oh, yes. Teach United.
Teach
Thank
United
you for
and Unique Minds.
And Unique Minds. Check it out. Okay, thank you for joining us. Next up. There's hope for humans, yes.
That's loads of hope.
You coordinated with your green.
Yes, we're coordinated. Hello, my name is Paola Zapata. I am actually from Bolivia, but I've been living in the States for a while, and I work for Casey SourceLink in Kansas City. So actually, I'm a community navigator, so I'm a resource navigator. But I do serve underserved community that speaks Spanish, that never had a computer, and sometimes haven't even finished high school. So I love using AI as a tool, but they will not replace me, because I can empathize with them being an immigrant, speaking their own language, and also understand their fear of being an entrepreneur for the first time. So I definitely think that AI is a great tool, but it will not replace us. And that's something that we've been hearing at all. We can empathize, we can be kind. So we shouldn't fear about AI, but we should use it as a tool. So when I meet with my clients that they want to open a business for the first time, they do not speak the language, I teach them how to use AI to write an email, and then can be translated to another language. But I don't tell them to write an email. I say, write what you feel, write you the email, and ask the AI to polish your email and then translate. So I think it's a great tool, but we shouldn't fear that we'll replace us, because we have feelings, we are kind, and we can empathize with other entrepreneurs.
Well, thank you for sharing that very hopeful message. Casey SourceLink?
Casey SourceLink from Kansas City.
Okay, thank you. Did we have one more in line?
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Sure, while he's walking up.
So really quickly, absolutely, you don't need to be worried that there won't be jobs, right? There will definitely be jobs. There just won't be the same ones. 20 years ago, we didn't have a mental health well-being industry. We do now, right? There will be things that we bring into being to recognize where people are going. But as an example, 75-80% of people will tell you that they want a human being to interact with when they have a choice, say at a supermarket checkout. And yet you'll actually find that humans, as in general, across the West, will go to the automated one instead of the human being when they actually have a choice. What they tell you they want and what the behavior is in reality is not always the same. So think about what people are actually saying they'll do, and actually it turns out that it's a benefit, even though they feared the loss of the human contact.
Fifth chair, introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Evan Walker, and I actually wanted to introduce a cool product I use that uses AI, which I'm actually recording right now on my Meta Ray-Ban glasses. I hope you guys don't mind, but it's been a great tool for, I founded a business that is in the service industry, and I make videos about my product and my whereabouts and how I use it and all that, and it's great for social media.
What's the name of the product?
I founded Clear Vision Curbs.
Clear Vision Curves.
So I improve address number displays for neighborhoods. So if you're an HOA leader, please come talk to me.
Okay, thanks for that. Awesome. And then we have one more. Our final one. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I on? Okay. My name is Christy Pearson, and I'm actually going to touch on just three quick pieces that I relate to in each one of these. So I am a assistant director for the West Central Indiana Small Business Development Center, so I work with entrepreneurs every day. I'm a 25 years of entrepreneurship myself. I wish I was 25 years old, but I am not. And then I'm also an adjunct faculty for Indiana State University, and I'm fourthly a PhD student who's getting ready to defend my dissertation in a couple of weeks on small business entrepreneurship from a global standpoint. Thank you. So what I wanted to touch on was I see AI working through 4 different lenses. From a entrepreneur, I wish AI was there 25 years ago when I started my first business, because AI helps our entrepreneurs on so many different levels now that we teach our entrepreneurs daily how to use AI for strategy, for marketing, for sales, for organizational development. So it's something that I believe that we need to be using in entrepreneurship. And anyone who's not using it, I try to get their ear for just 30 seconds. Please try it and you'll be amazed. Secondly, from an academic standpoint, within 2 institutions, I'm working at one institution getting my PhD at a second institution. The institution I'm getting my PhD from is very negative on AI. We are not allowed to use AI at all within the dissertation process. And where that becomes a fault is I have a chair and 2 committee members. My chair and my 2 committee members have no small business entrepreneurship background. They have no servant leadership background, and they have no disaster management background, which is all 3 of where I am at in my dissertation. So I rely on AI, even though they are telling us we can't. I have to come away with ways to dip into that research so that I can pull from someone who can mentor me, guide me, which is my AI research. And I do have to be careful because I need it to be who I am and relevant to who I am and to the process that I'm using for a global standpoint. But at the same time, I have to tap into it. So you have to learn how to do that ethically. And then lastly, where I pull all of that in from is I don't feel like I can go into a classroom and teach entrepreneurship without teaching AI inside of it, because I'm doing a disjustice to my students. I'm telling them, how can I tell my clients on the left, I need you to use AI so that you can be relevant in today and to be practical and to be competitive, but I'm telling my students, you can't use AI, because when they get into the real world, they're going to use AI. So the one way that I have really incorporated it, especially in my entrepreneurship classes, is I encourage them in the first 2 to 3 weeks, we do a project that is non-AI based. They are not allowed to use AI. And then what I do the next 2 to 3 weeks is I want them to do that exact same project using AI. And then their final project is comparing the 2. What did you learn? How were what were your thought processes in the beginning? What was your outcome? Did you succeed? Did you fail? If not, what did AI give you that you missed? What is that humanistic piece that you're missing that AI prompts you to be more successful at? So I think there is an underlying place for AI to be in academics, to be in real world practice, but it's taking theory and practice and research and combining them in an ethical manner.
Wow, thank you for wrapping that up for us. Bravo, and good luck on your dissertation. That's such an accomplishment. Thank you. So we're going to wrap our session. So Iman, Marissa, Tim, thank you for bringing your authenticity. Thank you for bringing your insights. This is such an important discussion. And I'm going to close with something Mark Cuban said yesterday, because he said it's never been a more exciting time to be a founder, an entrepreneur, and I feel that way too. So if you enjoyed today, these panel sessions, the keynote address, the interactive demo, I'm going to plug the GCEC conference coming up in October at the University of Calgary. We always do our conference on a campus. So we'll be in Alberta for 3 days of sharing, of learning, of discourse. So I encourage you to join us. And we are wrapping this wonderful session. Thank you for coming. Enjoy your lunch. Safe travels.